God, she's so
Oh my,
beautiful. I love.
oh my God!
Sorry. I'm
Please,
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
please
sorry.
don't simp. Please don't simp on the podcast. Oh my
Okay.
God!
So Carson, I have a question for you.
All right.
Who would win in a fight? 100 men or one silverback gorilla?
Oh my God!
This is the
Why?
question. I don't know if you've seen.
Why?
I don't know if you've seen, but this is the question that has been plaguing the internet recently. And I figured perfect way to start this day off. Carson, who would win? I need your thoughts because I have very strong opinions on this.
Oh my God, dude. Okay, well, okay. I don't fully know what the argument actually entails, so maybe I should. Maybe because like okay, is it just men, like pure men, like they don't have anything? It's just like pure
Yeah, it's
bare
just
men.
like a fist. It's like a fist fight between 100 men, like 100 just there's different like people are like, oh well, it depends on if you put like random people or let's just say 100 standard men when you think of a standard man and one
Okay.
silverback gorilla bare knuckle fight. Who's winning?
Oh man, that's a loaded question because on one
No, it's
hand,
not.
well, here's
In
the thing:
my opinion, it's not.
gorillas are very strong, but they don't have the
Mm-hmm.
same amount of intelligence that men do. So I do feel like if all the men work together, and I'm not talking like work together like Revenge of the Sith, let's take out Emperor Palpatine, stand there with our lightsabers looking cool and get destroyed till it's just Mace Windu, like, teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking like actually like full on end game charge at the gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would give the edge to man because I think that we could outwit and outsmart the okay. Well, I mean, the other option is
I
also likely.
I fully disagree with you. I've listened to a lot of different people talk about this on TikTok, other podcasts, things like that. I am very starkly in the silverback gorilla is tearing these men limb from limb. Now the reason why is I won't take credit for this thought. This was the Otaku's Anonymous podcast is the one who put the thought first in my brain is the second one of those guys gets torn in half, everyone else is shitting their pants and running for the hills. Like if you're putting 100 standard, even if you're putting 100 Marines in there, like maybe Marines a little bit less so, but once you see your 10th man get torn to absolute shreds, because a silverback gorilla can lift like 1,500 pounds. It
Sure,
does not take 1,500 pounds of force to rip a human being in half. The second that
sure.
someone gets torn in half, I'm shitting my pants. I'm bolting out of there.
Okay,
Like,
then let's change part of the question. Let's say that they don't out of fear turn. Like all they have is to charge this gorilla and take it down. And
like you
they're built
remove
like
fear from their brain.
you remove fear from their brain and they're built like Dwayne Johnson. Do you still think they have a chance? Or do you think it's the gorilla?
So that's where the question gets a little bit more interesting in terms of like, well, if you're in my opinion, if you're talking 100 standard men, they're losing
Yeah,
110%. If you put like, let's say 100 MMA fighters or 100 like Marines or something like
sure,
that, that's where I think the
sure,
conversation does get a little bit more interesting because like Marines, for instance, will have a lot less fear. Same with like MMA fighters. They're also built
sure.
to fight. I
Yeah.
do I don't know because the problem is, and you brought up the point of like, oh well, like strategy and man is smarter. I guess it also depends on how much prep time you have. It's the Batman question, Batman with prep time, but
Sure. Right.
also 100 people, 100 people are not all going to be able to attack this gorilla at once. 100 people is a lot of people.
Right.
So you're not all going to be able to dogpile on it or anything like that. You'd have to go in waves. And the problem is with those waves, you're making sacrifices. Like not every person's is walking away from this. You send like your first 20 people to go beat the shit out of this. Because a lot of people brought up like, oh, it's a stamina thing. And it's like, unfortunately, a silverback gorilla is going to have a lot more stamina than you are.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's where it's like, I don't know. Like, I think 100 standard men are getting absolutely brutalized. I think 100 like Marines or MMA fighters, like there's some pretty strong, but even then, silverback gorillas are like 500 pounds at their heaviest. They're lifting
Sure.
1,500 pounds.
Sure.
Like the most a human being has ever deadlifted was about 1,100 pounds.
Yeah.
And that
And that's
almost
like
killed him.
yeah, that's like a special breed of human being too.
Yeah, that was I believe it's Brett Shaw or no, not Brett Shaw. It's God, what's his name? It's one of the world's strongest men. I watch a lot of his content on YouTube just because like I like
Sure.
lifting. But
Sure.
yeah, it literally he talks about how lifting that much weight almost killed him. Gorillas do that for fun. Like
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't argue. I mean, it is also like one of those Instagram trends where you just have to go, why is this a trend this week? It does make you laugh because, like, look, I've said time and time again, I feel like I'm a very old soul and I hate Instagram trends, but I laugh every now and again whenever something starts becoming like really popular. Like when it might still be popular, but like when Deep Thoughts with the Deep was like a big thing earlier last year and those started coming out. I'm like, why are we doing this? The ice bucket challenge thing that it's not the ice bucket challenge that just happened. What was it called? It was the
ALS ice bucket challenge.
Yeah. And I'm like,
well, see, that one was for a good cause. That one was
for
to
a good
raise
cause.
awareness of it, and to raise money. It raised millions of dollars for a disease that has crippled many people and has no cure. So
okay, that was a bad example.
Harlem Shake, I guess, would be another one that came out
Harlem
around
Shake.
the same time, or the mannequin challenge, or like those types of things. I think one of my favorite internet trends that happened, I think it was at this point, it would have been like a year ago. And I don't know if you saw this one. It was the what are there more of in the world? Tires or wheels or doors. And that to me was really thought provoking because it's like, well, what's the definition of a wheel? What's the definition of a door? Like I have a bunch of doors in here, not a ton of wheels, but I have a lot of round objects in here. Are those counted? Like,
sure. No, I agree with you. I just think some trends are just stupid, and it really does show how today as a society we have all kind of really given into
devolving.
social media. Yeah, we're devolving, not evolving.
Well, yeah, we had the Tide Pod challenge. Like,
oh
God
my
forbid
God.
someone eats a Tide Pod.
Cinnamon challenge, which is just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Anyway, with that being said, challenges aside, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast in the world where your two favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I'm one of your hosts, Carson, aka Juggernaut, with my very good friend
Brandon, aka Parrotfish.
And today we are talking about, drumroll please. I like how I tried to do the drum roll on my desk, and it's not clearly going to come through on the mic. Thunderbolts. We're talking about Thunderbolts. Also, I want to take this time before we get started. Brandon, I know we're not recording this on the day, but happy May the 4th, buddy. Happy May the 4th to the viewers.
May the 4th be with you. May the 4th be with you. This will release on May the 4th. So.
I know. Which wasn't planned. It just happened to be that.
Yeah,
I'm
it was
really
just
happy
very
about
convenient that May the 4th ended up on a Sunday this year, which is the day that we released the podcast. So
I was like, oh, okay. That's nice.
Yeah. Funny enough, I actually wore one of my Star Wars bomber jackets to the Thunderbolts premiere that I went to on Thursday. And I got a compliment from a random stranger on the street. And I was like, well, that just boosted my ego for the next month. Like, I don't need anything else to keep me happy. If I ever think about how sad I am, I'll just be like, that random dude said my jacket looked cool. And I was like, nice.
Yep, I'm feeling good. I'm on top of the world. I don't need anything else. That one guy commented on my jacket. All right, sure.
Exactly. Look, guys don't get a ton of compliments. I take what I can get, okay? Was it another dude? Yes. Will I still take it? Absolutely.
Brandon, how we feeling? How we doing?
I am in pain, actually. So it's funny, I have not told you this yet. So last week we recorded early because I was gonna be in a cabin with some friends that we were getting an Airbnb to get away for the weekend. And my dumbass was goofing around. I did not have hiking boots on. I had regular tennis shoes on, hiking through the woods, and I
Sure.
decided that I was gonna climb a rock. That was there, and I fell off this rock onto another rock and very much bruised my tailbone. I have it hurts to sit down. I am on a pillow right now, sitting down on a pillow because it's the only thing to keep my tuchus from screeching out in immense pain. That was a week ago, and it still hurts. Mainly because I've probably been irritating it by still going to the gym. In fact, I know it's that, which is why I haven't been to the gym the last 2 days
Yeah.
since it's been pretty bad. But yeah. So we're out here, you know? Yeah. How are
In
you? How
pain,
are
but
you doing?
trucking along. Dude, I'm so tired. It's been a
Yeah.
long week. I've been stage managing a production at a school, a production of Frozen Junior, which the show itself only like an hour and a half. It's not long, but then again, it's Frozen, so everything's gonna be extremely elevated to a very just a, advanced level as far as technical effects and everything. I mean, we're using dry ice for like the Let It Go song, like for Elsa's like big
Dramatic
powerful
effect.
moment. Yeah. Well, the curtain starts off closed, and then she gets the one part, the past is in the past, dun 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 dun, let it go, and everything comes out at once. Well, unfortunately, this isn't like a dry ice machine we just rented. This is like I'm talking like a container bin with a hole in the side of it with boiling hot water, and I just dump a thing of dry ice into it. It looks really
Do you
cool,
have to
especially
like
when you have
go to the grocery store every day to pick up a new batch, or do they just have a freezer in the back just stocked with dry ice?
they sell dry ice at Publix, and I didn't know
No,
that.
I
Like
know, I know. Yeah.
I was just very confused. I went there and I was like, "Huh? They sell this? Why would Publix sell this?" I have no
I mean, it
like
comes
who
like people use it to like actually just keep things cold. Like it
That's
is like
insane. That's
yeah.
insane to me. I mean, it's that stuff is dangerous, man. I'll tell you what. That stuff is
Yeah.
dangerous. Uh So yeah, no, I'm tired, and then obviously this week, we saw Thunderbolts on the same day. We saw it Thursday night. It was Thursday night for you. It would have been Thursday evening for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thursday, we're in the same time zone. I saw it at Thursday at 6:30. So like I got off of work and then like got dressed and left like immediately.
yeah. Well, I saw it at 11:20 at night, and then we
Yeah, I don't know
stood in
why
the
you
parking
did
lot
that.
talking for like an hour later. So I didn't get home till and fall. I didn't like actually fall asleep till at least 4 a.m. in the morning, and then I got up and went and
Yeah, I
watched
don't know.
it again the following day.
Yeah,
So
I don't know why you did that. To be fair, I also saw it again. We've both seen Thunderbolts twice. I saw it both times in IMAX. Did you watch it? Were either of those times in IMAX or
the first time I watched was in IMAX. The second time was just
okay?
regular 2D. Yeah.
Okay.
But other than not dying throughout the entire week and keeping my mental and emotional stability in check, I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited. This is like my reward at the end of a long, hard week, just getting to talk about this
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm glad we're doing this. With that being said, Brandon, what you been consuming this week?
As always, a lot. So we're gonna go ahead and just get right into this because I have a lot to say about a lot of things. So I know we're gonna want to keep this like relatively brief. Sorry, I'm pulling up my notes. So I'm not gonna talk about Lazarus. I already mentioned that last week. This episode, just to give you a brief like thing, is still mid, still average. Like I didn't honestly, I kind of like barely paid attention for some of it. Like I took notes and I feel like I maybe wrote down like oh, actually, I didn't. Sorry, I didn't take notes. It's empty. I just opened it. I did not take notes. That's how much I did not care about this episode. And funny enough, it was probably the most interesting episode out of the 4 episodes that we've gotten so far, and I still did not care about it.
Dang.
So yeah, we're not gonna. I'm still gonna keep watching it, and I will talk about it if something interesting happens. But that was not this week. So we're gonna go ahead and
Sure.
jump to this week. I do have a very clear ranking of the 2 other anime that I watched. That I'm watching weekly. Not that either episode was bad. It wasn't like Lazarus level, but one episode stood out way more than the other. So we're gonna start out with my least favorite. Well, again, I shouldn't say least favorite, but the lower end of the spectrum of this week. And that's gonna be My Hero Vigilantes. I still really enjoy the show. I love the I love the dynamic between the characters. I talked about that on our social media platforms. That's one of my favorite things is the dynamic between Pop, Knuckle Duster, and Koichi, the 3 main characters. This week added an interesting element where a big focus of this episode was on a character that we got in My Hero Academia a little bit. We actually see the end of his story in My Hero Academia, because in My Hero Academia, he gets crippled.
Sure.
He is a pro hero that goes by the name Angelum. I'm probably butchering that a little bit. It's Tenya Ida is the name
Sure.
of the or no, it's not Tenya. Tenya's the brother, because we actually follow Tenya in My Hero Academia. He is one of the main supporting characters. But his brother is a pro hero, and this is where we get to see Angelum, the hero name. I'm
Sure.
blanking on his actual name for some
Sure.
reason.
No, I get this.
But yeah, so we get to see him kind of actually act as a mentor to Koichi. He teaches him a little bit about how to use his powers, just giving him some tips. He actually offers him like a position on like to help him get his hero license, because that's one of the things is like Koichi has tried before to get his hero license and he was never able to because his quirk's kind of lame. So he keeps
Sure.
getting rejected, and so now Angelum is like, "Hey, I like you. I think you're pretty cool. I'll help you get your hero license." And that kind of give Koichi like a little bit of a, oh wow, like I feel wanted. Like maybe I don't need to do
Sure.
this illegally.
Sure.
Um and at the end of it, Angelum finds out that Koichi is a vigilante and actually revokes the offer, but he does it in a way that's more of a like, I don't want to hold you back from what you're already doing. Like you're like
Right.
he doesn't stop him actually, because that's one of the big things is like even though he's helping people, he's doing it illegally. But Angelum
Yeah.
is like, hey, I'm gonna look the other way this one time. You helped me out. I don't agree with what you're doing, but I think that this is where you are meant to be. You're not meant to be a hero with me.
Sure.
And
Right.
I found that really like endearing, I guess, because it was like he could easily just come in here and be like, "Oh, nope, wrap this up, absolutely stop." Um, but he doesn't. And I think because we also figure out like a few other things. So like Knuckle Duster, I feel like this is such a big rule. I don't personally like this rule in media, but they have a whole thing about like Knuckle Duster doesn't kill, but he very clearly fucks people up very majorly. And
Sure.
it's like you might not be dead, but you will wish you were dead. And that's kind of like
Right.
I personally am a little sick of that. Like that's I'm curious to see, like, for instance, Invincible. Mark is like, "Oh, I don't kill," and then at the end of this season, and Mark is like, "Oh, I'm gonna start killing people." And I'm
Right.
curious to see where they take that story. But like, you have Batman, so pretty much every superhero is like, "Oh, I don't kill," and
Sure.
it's like, I'm not saying that killing is right by any means, but like,
No.
you're also being I'm not even saying they should kill people. That's not my problem. It's the fact that they're like, "Oh, I don't kill, but I will fuck you up so bad that you will never live a normal life again." And at that point, you might as well just kill. Like if you're going to fuck them up that bad, if you're going to paralyze them, if you're going to break their jaw, like
Sure.
that's hypocritical of you in my opinion. Like if your whole point
Yeah.
is to be the bigger man and the better person, which I guess to be fair, isn't Knuckle Duster's point. Knuckle Duster doesn't care about being the bigger person. He does care about getting these drugs off his street, but ultimately he's not trying to sit on a high and mighty horse. He's not
Sure.
out here saying I'm better than all of you. He's saying I'm doing what needs to be done.
Sure. Well, and honestly, that's like That's something I love about Daredevil, and I think that Daredevil is always balanced really well with showing the contrast between Punisher and Daredevil, and showing how Frank is always willing to kill no matter who it is, because it doesn't matter. A scumbag's a scumbag. Put them down, they stay down. Matt is always more along the lines of they need to go through the justice system. That's obviously his character. He doesn't kill people just for the sake of killing people. But what he will do is throw somebody off the roof so their leg is broken, or he will break somebody's leg. That doesn't paralyze them. That leg will heal, but it does, hurt a lot. And so that's something that I really appreciate about that show in particular, just like as far as a balance goes. And it sounds like something similar to here is that they don't really have like a real balance for it. Not saying they have like a Punisher character to like go off of, but they don't really have like a good balance of like they will go as far as to make somebody wish they were dead and basically ruin their life, but also at the same time like they just won't kill them. And it just seems like it's either interesting or like just a very very hard theme that the show just keeps treading with.
Yeah,
So.
it's a very hard line to like walk, because you do have in this show, obviously you have the pro heroes, which are very not just anti-killing, but like anti beating up more than necessary. Essentially, they're like, we'll do only what's necessary to stop the threat, nothing else. Knuckle Duster, he'll rough him up a little bit. He'll give him a little 1-2 more than necessary, and you do get that contrast a little bit. My Hero Academia, actually, funny enough, the villain that cripples Angelum, the hero that we were talking about in this episode, actually is kind of a vigilante himself, but he goes far as to cripple and kill people. He's like, oh, I don't believe you're doing it the right way. So My Hero Academia actually does cover that contrast of like, I'm doing what is right. His name is Stain, and he's removing the stains from society that he believes are not doing what they're supposed to do. He hunts down heroes, but only the heroes he deems are not actually saving people. And I loved that storyline. And I'm curious to see, I guess, what elements of that story play into the elements of a character like Knuckle Duster, who again is just out here to protect his city, but he's willing to go farther than the average hero to do what's necessary. Because here's like the thing about Knuckle Duster, it's not just that he can't get his hero license. Now, he can't because, as we established, he's quirkless, and you can, from my understanding, only get a hero license if you have a quirk. But also, he doesn't want to be a hero because he doesn't want the constraints of being a hero. He wants to be that person that has the freedom to do what's necessary. And I do really appreciate that about this character, especially, again, in the world of My Hero, especially in the world that we're in now with My Hero, where the drug that they're dealing with, Trigger, feels really street level. What they're dealing with in My Hero Academia is world ending stuff. They're dealing with villains that are going to take over it and the world. In this, yes, the villains do a lot of damage to people in society, but it really is just a street level threat. And you need a street level villain or a street level hero to take care of that. Again, harkening back to Daredevil and Punisher, it's a really good like comparison to what this story is going for. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying this. Again, the only reason it did not reach higher, one, it was a standard episode. Like, it was enjoyable, but it didn't necessarily do anything like shocking. But it was still very enjoyable. But let's get to the episode that made me cry. Let's get to the episode that I think is genuinely a work of art. And I mentioned this in my short. I think I've honestly mentioned this every single week. To go from literally one of my least favorite first episodes of any show, admittedly. An episode that moved way too quickly. I could not care less about anything that happened in there, to every single episode being better and better, leading up to what this episode was. To be Hero X is impressive. Like, it is, this episode was a masterclass, in my opinion, of visuals, of storytelling, of metaphors, of emotion, of surprise. There are 2 moments specifically in this episode where I did not see it coming, and it genuinely, because this show is not, it is willing to go the distance. It is willing to take risks. It is willing to, it doesn't, it will let you feel comfortable just enough to rip it out from under you. And that was perfectly represented in this episode. I don't honestly know where to begin. But so essentially God Eye, he is the main villain from the first episode, who was grilling Nice and Moon on the dating show, being like, "Oh, you're not nice. You're an imposter. Like, we don't believe you." And he gets defeated. And then at the end of that episode, he gets approached to become a villain and use fear. And the reason his name is God Eye is because his ability that he gets from fear, similar to how the heroes get their abilities from what people entrust upon them, is he can find weaknesses in other people, because the entire purpose of his existence is to disassemble the superhero like manifestations that have been made. People are putting the heroes on a pedestal, and he doesn't necessarily want to hurt people. He just wants to disassemble the false constructs that are these heroes.
Right.
And this episode does that masterfully. So the God Eye at the end of the last episode takes Moon captive and reveals that she's still alive, because the whole purpose of the second episode was they faked her death so she could go free. End of last episode, it's like, oh shit, God Eye has captured Moon, therefore people are not going to trust Moon or Nice anymore, and their trust levels are going to deplete, which means they're going to get weaker. And there is a very vocal group of Nice's supporters that believe that this is all a falsity. They believe that this isn't actually Moon. They don't want Nice to give in to this villain. They don't want him to give him the satisfaction of going after him. And what does that mean? Well, that means that Nice physically cannot go after Moon. He literally cannot, because that's the whole thing. You get your powers from the people that trust you, but you can also get held back. Similar to how Firm Man from last episode, he can't bend down because the people don't want him to ever bend down. Now, Nice, his supporters, or Lin Lang acting as Nice, his supporters don't want him to go. So therefore, he cannot go.
Right.
And it's only once, and this was a beautiful scene, it's only once Lin Lang sheds himself of the moniker of Nice. He's like, I don't care about Moon as Nice. I care about Moon as myself. I am going to go as myself. I'm not going to go as Nice. I'm not going to go. So he strips off his Nice costume and is like, I am going to go after Moon as me, as Lin Lang.
Right.
And the problem is, he's just Lin Lang. He doesn't have the abilities that Nice does. And therefore, when he gets to God Eye, he gets brutally beaten. It is a brutal, beautifully animated fight where he is just losing. Bloodily, he is getting his face beat in. He is getting destroyed because Lin Lang doesn't have a trust level. The people don't know who is going to save Moon. They just know there's some random idiot who is getting his ass beat, and the people don't care. They're not like, oh my god, like there's this guy going to save. They're like, no, you're an idiot. You're gonna get yourself killed. So he doesn't have any power. You can actively see they have. I don't think I've talked about this before, but you can see their trust level on their wrist, and you can actively see that Lin Lang's is basically depleted to 0. He has nothing. He is just an average Joe. And then he has this beautiful speech. This is where I started to tear up of how much he cares about Moon and how much Moon has meant to him and how much she's done for him. Because obviously we don't see Lin Lang and Moon interact all that much. They've spent a lot of time together, even though it's only been like 2 episodes that they were together before she left. But Moon made Lin Lang's career because Lin Lang, before becoming nice, made all of Moon's advertisements. He was the person who pushed her to be the celebrity that she was. She never knew he existed, but he worked for the ad agency that made all of her ads. So he knew more about her than pretty much anyone else. And she made him who he is, even without knowing it. So he gives this whole speech of like, oh, I care about her. And that's when the people start rallying behind him. They're still like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't care, though. He clearly cares about this person, and his trust level skyrockets again because now the people are like, we don't give a shit who this is. We want him to save Moon. That was a beautiful speech. And then one of the most beautifully animated fights I've ever seen. It shifts art styles like twice of Lin Lang beating up God Eye. And God Eye is giving this whole evil monologue, evil speech about like, all I want to do is strip the heroes of their mind. I want you to tell the truth. I just want to strip you of your falsities. Because one thing I skipped over is before Lin Lang goes to save, they're like, oh, we're going to send another hero. We're going to send, I'm trying to look in my notes, Blankster. Blankster he used to be a boxer, and his power is that he can punch really hard, but his punches remove people's memories. So the goal is that he can go, so Nice doesn't have to, or Lin Lang doesn't have to, and just punch God Eye, remove his memory of all of this happening. But that's when God Eye's like, I know your secret. You actually cheated as a boxer, and that's what got you here. And that's where he's showcasing that he's not just like some evil, like mustache twirling villain. His whole power is knowing the weaknesses and knowing the secrets of these heroes. And so he just disassembles until Blankster has no trust level left because it's revealed through images and through word that he is a fraud. He has gotten to this point of being a hero as a fraud. Again, he's not hurting anyone by doing this. He's just, his whole goal, God Eye's goal, is disassembling the falsities of the heroes. And whether you believe that's right or wrong, because they are still saving people, but they're doing it on the backs of lies. And it's a very interesting moral question of who's correct. Like, what are you going to do about that? So, but after Blankster gets basically defeated, or not basically, he gets pummeled. That's when Lin Lang comes in, and that's when this whole thing comes in. And at the end of the fight, after Lin Lang, he then is bestowed the moniker of the Commoner, because he is just an average Joe. He is the commoner. He is not a hero. He's not anyone. Now, he is still at that number 10 because after everything that happened, his power level went back to where he was as Nice. I would have liked to see a little bit of a difference where maybe he was a little higher, a little lower, but going back exactly where he was, like, okay, cool, whatever. That's when it's revealed that God Eye didn't have Moon. It was all a lie. The people who didn't want Lin Lang to go were right. It was a lie. Moon was never here. God Eye's like, I could not find her. I had no idea where she was. I succeeded. My goal was just to prove that Moon was still out there. And you proved my point by coming here. Whether the people realize it or not, like, that seed has been planted. And at the end of the episode, we skip to Moon, who has idiotically stranded herself on a deserted island because she's like, oh, I want to go as far away from people as possible and just live out my life happily. Well, what does that mean? She ends up on a deserted island in the middle of the ocean and has no food, no water, no nothing. She fucked herself over and doesn't have her portal gun with her because she forgot it and whatever. And that's when Lin Lang goes and is like, there's this really beautiful reunion of, oh, I'm going to go say hi to Moon and make sure she's still okay. And by doing so, and this is where it's curious to see what, like, if this is the reason. But my theory is that by Lin Lang going to save Moon, he reveals her location because as they're about to embrace and say hello to each other again, Moon dies. She gets her brains blown out on the ground.
Jesus. Oh my gosh.
And we flash back to the first episode. At the end of the first episode, Lin Lang, as Nice, lays down in bed next to Moon for the first time, and he sees a vision of Moon dead. That
Yeah,
same image is how we now see Moon literally laying dead on the ground. I do believe that she is actually dead now. I don't believe that this is a fake out like they did the first
sure,
episode, but it calls into a lot of questions of why did Lin Lang see that vision? Why was that what he saw? Why is Moon dead? Who wants her dead? Because the
sure,
big thing that's going to kick off the next arc, of this is there's this big tournament going on to determine who the strongest heroes are. It's all the heroes are going to go up against each other in a friendly match to determine who's the best. And the
sure.
question is, did this have anything to do with it? Is there another reason why this happened? I don't know. But God, I love this episode. It was so I don't know. This show, again, for being the worst episode, in my opinion, one of the worst first episodes, just being way too quick and not making you care about anything. I am so invested in every single I've
It turned itself
heard
around.
that yeah, exactly. I've heard, and this worries me admittedly, I've heard that there's been rumors. None of this is confirmed, but there's been rumors that every 4 episodes is going to follow a different hero. So that would mean that we're done with Lin Lang's story. I don't know how I feel about that, given that they ended on such a cliffhanger directly related to Lin Lang. I'm curious to see because we've already gotten everything we need to know about this power system through Lin Lang. I'm curious to see how following different heroes can change our perception of that and how we can build upon it. I am also a little worried that this show is 24 episodes long. At the pace that we're moving, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep me engaged for 24 episodes.
Sure.
Just based on the fact that, like, yes, there's a lot of unanswered questions. Yes, we have the tournament arc, but they've been covering things pretty quickly. And if they keep at this pace, I don't know. Again, I'm curious to see where that goes. But we'll
Well,
have to
yeah.
see when it gets released.
Well, speaking of, things that, start off with one set of characters and moves to another set of characters, we had a trailer drop this week, Brandon, with Now
Yes.
You See Me, Now You Don't, or Now You See Me
Now
3,
you see me 3. Yep.
which I don't know how to feel about the trailer. Like, yes, you have Merritt McKinley, you have oh my goodness, I'm gonna get the characters wrong.
You
So I'm
have
just
all
gonna
the
say the
main
actors' name.
cast. You have all
You
3 of the main cast back. It's Woody
you all
Harrelson,
Isla Fisher, Dave Franco,
Will
Jesse
Smith.
Eisenberg.
Yeah.
You have all of them back, and it's really cool to see them back. But it seems like the film itself is going to be following this new generation of horsemen, which I don't have a problem with. But I think part of the charm with the Now You See Me franchise that works so well is the fact that those original 4 were just so good on screen together. They were electric.
Mhm.
And they had great chemistry with one another. So yeah, I'm not concerned, and I'm certainly I'm gonna enjoy it for what it is. But I don't know. It's just one of those changes where I was like, I wish we had them for the entire movie. Also, there's no sighting of Mark Ruffalo, who, if you objectively look at the first 2 movies, it's his story. He is the main
Yeah, I
character
mean, it
of the
is.
movies.
It is. Like, yeah. Like, he isn't the sole we follow the horseman, which he is a part of
Right.
for the second movie. So let's backtrack a little bit. So the reason Carson brings this up now as opposed to the what are you looking forward to is because conveniently enough, while I was in the cabin this past weekend, without knowing that this trailer was going to be released, mind you, I
Yeah.
rewatched. I had already seen, but I rewatched with some friends who it was their first time watching it. Both Now You See Me movies.
Yes.
And again, I had already seen both of these movies previously. I know Carson also, he said he rewatched the first movie, but he's seen both in the past.
I've seen them both a lot. Like those movies mean
Yeah.
a lot to me because they were they were really cool, especially growing up in like middle school and through high school. I thought they were like absolutely like incredible visually. They were creative, they were fun. Honestly, that's the best thing. They were some of the most creatively fun movies I think I've
Oh yeah.
ever seen outside of like
Oh
Star
yeah.
Wars or Marvel, like on a standalone property. They are creatively some of the most fun movies I've ever seen. And the first one I really enjoy. I love the mystery behind it. I think there's a lot of heart to it as well. The second one, it's fine. I like
Well,
the second
so
one. It's just not as good.
I think and they're both very different. And I think that's
Yeah.
why, because the first movie, there's a lot of mystery behind it. You don't know who brought them together. You don't know the reason they're doing this.
Sure.
There's a lot of question marks. Like, for instance, the first time I watched this, I had zero idea that the big reveal, spoiler alert for if you haven't watched this, and spoiler alert for everything we talk about, that Mark Ruffalo at the very end of the movie actually turned out to be the person who brought them all together.
Right. The
There's
person
this
who's
whole thing
hunting
of,
them
oh,
is the
the
person who brought them
eye, the
together.
mystery of the
Yeah.
the mystery of the eye, and they don't know what any of this has to do, and it's revealed that Mark Ruffalo is actually the one who was pulling all the strings. I did not see that coming. That was a really,
No.
really fantastic reveal. They very
Yes.
purposefully, I mean, everyone thought it was going to be the French lady. Like when I watched it in the Airbnb, everyone was like, "Oh, it's obviously the French lady." It's because they very purposefully, they very deliberately misdirect you, as the whole show is, or how the whole movie is. It's all misdirection and sleight of hand and things of that. They very
Right.
deliberately misdirect you to make you believe that it is the French woman whose name I'm forgetting.
Yeah. I just know her
But
as the French woman from Inglorious Bastards. That's what I know her as.
But yeah, so that movie, the first movie, is phenomenal because it's a mystery movie, and there's a
Correct.
lot of intrigue there. The tricks are very believable. They're very down to earth. There are some stretch your imagination for sure, but
Sure.
not to an unbelievable degree, in my opinion. I actually,
Not
the reason
like
I say that is the
not
person
like
who
the second
introduced me
movie.
to these movies used to do magic. They were actually someone
Sure.
who has done magic in the past. They were a trained magician. That's why they introduced me to these movies originally many years ago.
Sure.
And they walked me through a little bit of that, like, oh, well, this actually can be done. Because there'd be times where I'm like, oh, that trick looks ridiculous. And they'd be like, no, like, it can actually be done with the way that they described or other ways. And I was like, oh, that's actually really interesting. With the
Sure.
second movie, there's a lot less mystery. You know exactly where from the second the movie starts, or I shouldn't say the second the movie starts, but from very early on in the movie, you know where it's going to end. You know what the goal of the movie
Yeah.
is. You know where everything's going to go. You're really just there to watch them do really cool tricks. And it does get a little bit into some, I wouldn't say complete, like, unbelievability, because again, according to my friend, a lot of those tricks can be done. They're just way more difficult and way more like a little bit more misdirection and stretch of the imagination when you're watching them, but they are still technically possible. As they show, they one of the big things is they do describe how they do all those tricks as you're watching the movie. But my biggest fear with the third movie, and I was messaging back and forth with the friend who introduced me. I was like, I need your thoughts on this because I have many thoughts on this trailer.
Yeah.
It feels more like a spy movie. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like a mystery. It doesn't feel like there's any. It feels a lot closer to the second movie than the first movie. And like you said, the first movie is I wouldn't say miles better, but it is definitely more enjoyable because of that mystery element than the second movie is.
So I think let me just get into this really quickly because I think the second movie objectively as a film is a lot more mediocre than the first movie. The first movie I feel is
Hmm.
a very straightforward, fun, big mystery film with a really excellent reveal at the end. Like even my dad loves this movie, and I know I've talked a little bit
Hmm.
about my dad in this podcast. He isn't like a big into like superhero Star Warsy type stuff. He likes the more believability in
Hmm.
films like The Godfather or Shawshank Redemption. He loves those types of things, and so for him to say that he actually loves this movie, it means a lot. I actually do agree with you. I think the first one has a lot of believable things that happen. Obviously, there's like the one trick at the very end whenever they're like all saying like, you know, goodbye to the world before they go into hiding. It's like the final trick, and they jump into the air and they turn into cards or whatnot. That's not possible. That's not a thing.
I mean,
You
it
can't.
is. It is.
I guess to
Again,
a certain
it's one of
extent.
those things where it's not as you think it is. Like, I mean, there have been magicians who literally made people believe that they made the Statue of Liberty disappear. That's like an actual. I believe it was David Copperfield who did that trick. Or no, it wasn't David Copperfield. Who was it? There was a famous magician who using similar tricks to the mirrors and stuff that they have in the movies actually made the Statue of Liberty disappear. So you can do tricks like that. There is ways to go about it, but I do agree that it's one of those tricks that to believe that it can happen, you can't watch it in a movie context, because the second you put it in a movie context, you know that they're able to take more creative liberty than if you're actually watching it on a stage or in real life.
Well, and it's not practical effects. Like if they literally said from the get-go, like, hey, all of this is practical magic. We did shoot it with
Yeah.
practicality. It would be different. This is CGI. So it is a lot
Yeah,
harder for believability.
that's
Even if it is
true.
possible, it is harder for that reason to believe it.
True.
That doesn't
Very
bog
true.
down the movie. Again, the story in and of itself of the first one is great, and I love it. I love how everybody, for the most part, is actually kind of playing against the type that they've played in the past. Like you've never really seen Jesse Eisenberg. Jesse Eisenberg has played, you know, the jerk, the arrogant asshole before. Social Network being his best role, and in my opinion, one of the best movies of all time. He's great in that movie. Here, it's not so much of he's an awkward arrogant asshole. He's a confident arrogant asshole. Like he knows exactly
Yeah.
who he is. He knows exactly what his abilities are. He's the guy who's one step ahead of everybody else. And then the same goes for the rest of the cast to some extent. They're all playing against type, even if they have certain aspects that they've played before within that role. The story, the characters, the twists, the actual effects themselves are really, really good. The second movie, whereas it's not, because now you know the mystery, you know everything of why it's happened, you know who these people
Yeah.
are. It's now let's establish lore and let's build this world out. And the mystery isn't so much more of who these people are, what they can do. We actually follow them this time around, which I really like. That twist for the second movie is you get to follow the Horsemen as opposed to following the FBI as they're trying to hunt down the Horsemen.
Correct. Yeah.
It brings you a lot more into their world, and I really enjoy it. It also brings a lot of comedy as you follow the Horsemen in the second movie. It's really, really clever.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the movie becomes this heist film with Daniel Radcliffe, and it makes sense, but at the same time, it's just like it's one of those choices where I'm like, I don't agree with. You could have done anything else. Like they did the most ballsy thing, and they reveal that Mark Ruffalo or oh my gosh, what's the
Are you thinking
character's name?
the Morgan Freeman twist at the end? Is that what you're thinking
No,
about?
what's
Or
Mark Ruffalo's character's name? What's his name?
God, well, I'm blanking on it so hard. It's Agent
David.
something. They
Well,
no, it's
he
not.
has two different
No,
names
it's not
technically.
David.
He has two different names
True.
technically.
He has his
He has
agent name and then his actual name because like he's playing two
Dylan,
different
Dylan
characters.
Rhodes,
Dylan.
Dylan
Yes.
Rhodes,
Yes. Yes.
Dylan Rhodes. Dylan, once he's revealed, they do the most ballsy thing. They reveal him, and then you really should have just made that an FBI manhunt for the Horsemen. And then the IU helps them, like, okay, here's what you can use to survive. Then go to China. Then use all of these like skills at your disposal to be able to pull off, like, you know, the perfect getaway heist to keep running using magic, whatever. That would have been a much more interesting plot. Instead, they stepped away from that, and they kind of pursued it, but it became the B plot in a movie which it should have been the A plot. And you take the Four Horsemen and you replace them with a plot with Daniel Radcliffe, who wants to steal this code to, or what they call a clean slate, to wipe out his entire past. then Michael Caine
Well,
comes back.
because
That's the only part that I kind of agree with, is that Michael Caine's character comes back in the fold and he wants revenge. That's fine. Then don't make it Daniel Radcliffe. Make it Michael Caine.
well, I think they did the Daniel Radcliffe thing to subvert expectations and make you like basically like, oh, well, we're not going to tell, like, it's a mystery thing. But at its core, and I didn't really think about it this way until we were talking about this. At its core, both Now You See Me movies, and I guess this is another reason I'm pretty afraid for the third movie and where they're going to take that. Both Now You See Me movies are also revenge plots.
Yeah.
In the first
Yeah.
movie, it's Dylan's revenge on Morgan Freeman's character, whose name
Yep.
I'm blanking on. And in the
Thaddeus.
second movie, Thaddeus, yes, Thaddeus, thank you. It's Dylan's revenge on Thaddeus. That's the whole plot of the movie. And then obviously it's revealed in the second movie that, and that's another thing. They try to play off of your surprise from the Dylan reveal at the end of the first movie by doing the whole Morgan Freeman, the Thaddeus reveal at the end of the second movie. I feel like it's a little bit more like I don't know how much I love that, like, the whole turning the first, like, both movies, you're turning the villain into the hero. Like, it's a little bit of a weird, like, twist that they did twice. But in the second movie, it's another revenge plot. That's the whole, like, you're made to believe that the whole point is Daniel Radcliffe wants to steal this chip that can take over any computer system and sell it to the highest bidder and make a ton of money. That's actually not what this
Sure.
story is about. You find out later on that it's actually a revenge plot because the horseman stole from the insurance company, and he's really pissed off and he wants revenge on the horseman. He wants them to
Right.
die or rot in prison or whatever. Well, die. He tries to shove them out of an airplane. And I can appreciate that both of those are revenge plots and things like that, whether I think they're both done masterfully or not. With the third movie, where are you going with it? I guess, like, we don't have, to my understanding, there's not really a core, like, granted, I didn't expect the second movie to go the way that it did, and maybe there's going to be something that I'm forgetting about that I'm not thinking of, like maybe the French lady comes back and maybe the French lady's the main villain of the third. I don't know.
Sure.
But like, that's why I feel like, and to be fair, I never watched the trailers for the other Now You See Me movies, so I don't know how they present in trailers versus how they actually play out in the movie. This is my first time watching
Sure.
one of the Now You See Me trailers. But it just, again, it feels like more of a heist movie than it feels like a revenge plot or a magic movie or anything like that. It feels like
Yeah.
we're gonna steal this diamond. You even have like a little bit, like, when I was watching that movie or the trailer, I literally had the dun 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 dun, like, that was playing in my head because that's what this felt like. It felt more like a Mission Impossible movie than it felt like a Now You See Me movie.
So from what I remember, because I do remember vaguely these trailers, like, being on television and watching them when I was younger around that
Yeah,
time.
maybe I did watch them. I just don't remember them. But
From what I remember, and I think this is what Now You See Me always did right, was they left their movies very vague. Like, they showed some of the big action set pieces, but for the most part, they left it vague. This trailer actually gave a lot more in regards to what they're potentially doing with the plot. And again, this comes into the big problem of they set up Mark Ruffalo's character to be the main character of this franchise. And I'm not saying he's not in the movie. He might be, but he's definitely not in the trailers. And he has not been announced in anything, or he's never said publicly if he's going to be in the third movie. At least I haven't seen anything.
I think he is. I think you can't have these movies without Mark Ruffalo, to be honest with you. I think that Dylan is a very, very, very core part. And now maybe the reason he's not in the trailers is because he plays a lesser role, because at the end of the movie, Thaddeus makes the whole, like, passing of the torch to Dylan. So now Dylan probably has a higher role in the eye, and maybe he has to play more of a hands-offish role than he did in the second movie, especially, where he was very hands-on. But I still think he'll be there. I'm just curious to see how his role plays in.
And that's part of the issue, because very rarely in film and television is there ever an opportunity for people to take the supporting characters or character and make a main stable project about them and have it work. Like, the only thing that comes to mind in which I think, like, okay, that worked, was Better Call Saul. It took Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad and it made him into an actual character, and he not only made a show work, it was phenomenal. And I guarantee you some people would probably look at that show and go, that might actually be better than Breaking Bad. I would argue with you about that, but there's probably some people who say that.
Yeah.
And here it's the thing of, we follow Dylan's story. This is Dylan's story start to finish. If they're passing the torch and Dylan's been revealed, he's a part of this crew. So the only thing that I could think that could make it work, and it still isn't even clean, is that Dylan, like you said, moved on or has a higher up position, because the whole trailer, it's talking about how the gang broke up. There was something that happened between them that caused them to, like, stop, working together as a team.
Well,
The
and
Horsemen are
isn't
gone.
that also kind of what kicks off the second movie? That's also why they No, that's also why the girl from the first movie gets recast in the second movie. Now, granted, that was due to, like, contracts and things like that. It wasn't actually like they did that on
That was due
purpose, I don't
to
think.
Isla Fisher being pregnant, actually. She was
Oh,
having
really?
a kid,
Okay.
and she just couldn't come
Okay.
back for it. Yeah,
Okay.
so
But, like, isn't that a big thing in the first movie as well, where, like, well, I guess they didn't break up. I think it's explained where it's like the Eye basically hasn't given them a mission, so they, like, separate for a long period of time, but, like, they still, like, stay connected a little bit, like,
sure.
yeah.
Well, and again, just going back to Dylan being the main center focus of the character, we follow, the first thing was revenge for his father. And then we get more lore and world building, and we still talk about his father a lot. And this third movie should really be revealing to some sort of, like, big, not finale, but building to something, that falls along Dylan and his father again. Because that's the whole point of his, why he's done what he's done this entire time, was because of who his father was and the revenge that he wanted for his dad.
Yeah.
I saw a theory, when this movie was announced, the third one, I saw some sort of theory talking about how it was going to be a big reveal that his father was alive.
I
And my
literally was just
God,
I was gonna end this conversation by asking you, do you like, because that was something that, like, when I was watching the first and second movie, my friends kept saying, oh, the dad's still alive. The dad's not, the big reveal is gonna be the dad was pulling the strings, or the big reveal is it was the dad. If they do that, I will walk out of that goddamn theater so fucking fast.
I will do the same thing.
Feel for even a second that the dad, I don't care if I paid money. I mean, granted, I have A-list, so it doesn't matter, but I will walk out of that theater I don't care how invested I am in the story. The first two movies will mean I will feel like I have wasted time watching the first two movies if the dad is revealed to be alive.
Well, and yeah. No, I agree with you, because I think that's a really stupid theory, and I think it's a really bad idea. I don't think
Correct.
I don't think that will work well as far as, like, leaving a good taste in your audience's mouth. People will walk out feeling very sour about it because of everything that transpired before it. And so at the end of the day, I think that based on the trailer for Now You See Me, Now You Don't, I think they have a chance. I'm willing to be proven wrong, especially because the trailers are always usually very vague.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, the first one being very, very good, the second one being okay to mediocre because of some of the choices they make. The track history with this franchise is hit or miss, and I have not seen anything yet that's, like, latched onto me.
Yeah.
Has latched onto me as far as, like, excitement. So we will wait and see to find
Now
out
you
if this movie's
see.
good or not.
Now you don't.
Screw you, dude. Don't make bad
Okay.
jokes on the
Anyways,
podcast.
moving on. What do
Don't
you want
make
to talk
bad
about?
jokes on the podcast.
We have two more shows to talk about before we get into the main topic of conversation. So which one do you want to jump to next?
Let's get into Andor, because
Okay.
that's more fresh in your mind.
Well, I was gonna say I finished watching Andor 20 minutes, actually, like, literally 10 minutes before we started recording this. is when I watched the episode 4 last night before I left because I had some time. I actually watched Last of Us and Andor back to back before I went to go see my second showing of Thunderbolts last night, and then I watched the other 2 episodes of Andor this morning back to back. So yes, they are
Right.
fresher in my mind.
Right.
But
Um.
let
Well,
me hear your thoughts first.
yeah. Look, I said in my 3-minute review, there's nothing wrong with this season. There's nothing wrong with this 3 set of episodes. I just feel, uh, uh, um, I just feel like we're building to something, and because we're technically halfway through the show now. I'm
Hmm.
I kind of really want to start seeing the results of what we're building towards. We haven't really seen much of that yet. Um, but even though we haven't, that's literally my only complaint with these 3 episodes is just I wish we would have seen more of the build so we can see where the story's actually going, and it's not just a
I
year in
mean,
Cassian Andor's life. I wish we would have gotten a
I
little more, and we are to a certain extent, but we're not getting like the full picture, which I think we at this point as the audience should technically have. Um,
I mean, I think we do, personally. I think we do have the full picture of what this is going to look like. And I just gotta say, I called it last week. The whole crux of the big like end battle is going to be Dedra on Gorman and Andor. They're
oh
building
yeah.
up what Gorman is. They're building up the concept, and I think it is a masterful thing.
Oh,
I
genuinely.
love these 3 episodes. The acting of the characters is phenomenal. Um, I will say the weakest part for me was and maybe you're gonna disagree with me on this. I think the weakest part for me was the Saw Gerrera stuff.
Yeah.
I just
It was
like
good. It just was weak.
it was good. It felt it didn't feel like it was building like to me, even though everything from the last week's 3 episodes felt a little disconnected, you could see the plot thread showing itself through everything. You could see
Yeah.
why we were telling all these stories, and we see what the purpose of why we're seeing Mon Mothma and Andor and Bix and
Right.
all these
Right.
different perspectives, Cyril and Dedra.
Correct. Correct.
This, you have the same, in fact, they're more tied together. All of them except for Saul Guerrera's. I feel like it was kind of an unnecessary. And again, I am more than willing to be proven wrong. I am almost positive we're going to get more Saul Guerrera in the next 3 episode drop, just because there's no way this is the only time. Maybe it's because of the storyline with Will and how Saul Guerrera is corrupting Will to be
Sure.
more of that guerrilla warfare style of, because that's the whole thing with Saul Guerrera's character is he believes in the rebellion concept, but he is much more brutalistic. He's much more guerrilla warfare than the
Sure.
playing behind the scenes strategic. He's more, I will brutally murder and torture and capture whoever. He literally shoots one of the spies point blank in the head without any remorse. Like, he is
Right.
brutal in his fight for rebellion. That's been
Well,
Saul
and
Guerrera's storyline in we've seen him a lot of different places, both old and young.
sure. Well, and honestly, that's the reason that this show is still probably the best thing Star Wars has ever done, and why season 2, I would still argue, is very masterful. It's just slower. It's a slower burn than the first season, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um, I it deals with the constant theme of humanity and what side of humanity we should be on.
yeah,
And I think that that's where Saul Guerrera's character really has to kind of come into play here, is because we're seeing one aspect of it with Luthen and Mon Mothma's side, and then we see we see Saul Guerrera's side. Both sides in some way have a very messy, willing to kind of cross the line in some regards, but Saul
yeah.
Guerrera specifically, like you said, guerrilla warfare. Good God. Um And I love that that's the constant theme of this show. And again, it shows the adult, mature side of Star Wars that we just have
Mm-hmm.
never seen. And it's funny because before we got on this podcast, we talked. I gave you a phone call because there's some comments coming in on our shorts, on our videos on TikTok, and one of them was like, for both Last of Us and Andor, both technically started arguments of people. And for Andor specifically, because it's a very political show, started this whole argument where people were just like, what? Of course, this guy's praising the show. And then another person like is retaliating back, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, that. I'm like, what the heck, people?
I
Guys, it's
mean,
just an Andor
it's
review. It's
it,
not that
it
it's not that deep.
I mean, it is and it isn't, because this is telling a very, like you said, it's telling the human side of Star Wars. This right now, what we're watching is very reminiscent of what was happening during like the Cold War period. It's the spies, it's the
Right.
espionage, it's the strike strategically. If you my eyes were a little all over the place because I was just looking up the IMDb because I wanted to shout someone out, Kyle Solar.
I
Kyle
could tell.
Solar,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know, is the actor for Cyril. I
Yeah.
think he he was my standout for these 3 episodes. Personally, he did a phenomenal job with his acting because here's the thing:
Yeah.
for about half of the episode, he gets shipped off to Gorman. The whole story is that Dedra and him have broken up, and he got demoted, and he's been sent to Gorman to live
Right.
out the rest of his life counting spiders, essentially.
Right.
And there's that question of how true is this? Like, where is this going? And then they start sowing the seeds of doubt. And it's like, oh, well, Cyril might actually like his mom makes a comment when he's on the phone with her of don't become too much of an individual. And you're like, ooh, is Cyril gonna like, is he becoming too much of an individual? Is he like starting to have
Yeah.
doubts? Whatever. It's
Yeah.
revealed later on that he was actually a spy for Dedra, and he's actually on Gorman specifically to plant those seeds of doubt that Dedra had talked about in the last 3 episode drop of, oh, how do you, because if you don't know, the whole plan that they're putting together, at least from my perspective, is essentially they want to gain full control over Gorman. They want to be able to
Right.
put down as much of a boot as possible. And the reason why Dedra's idea is we need to have insurgents is because the best way to crack down on security is to have a reason. And that reason
Right.
is going to be the rebellion that starts on Gorman. And Cyril is
Right.
the one that's sowing those doubts. And he did such an excellent job that I started to believe that he was having doubts. I was like, oh, is Cyril going
Sure.
to be a flip? Is he going to flip? And then skip to they're in the briefing room with him, Dedra, and I'm forgetting the it's not Krennic. Who's the other one? The other Imperial guy that's like the head of the
Uh,
council. I'm
I know
forgetting his name.
it's he plays Qyburn in Game of Thrones. I don't know what his name is though, but I know exactly who
Yeah,
you're
but
talking about.
they're in the briefing room together, and he leaves, and Cyril and Dedra are there, and Cyril was like, "This is the best day of my life," and that's when it clicked of like, "Oh no, Cyril is fully acting. There is no sense of remorse. There is no sense of care for these people whatsoever. He is not
Yep.
gonna flip. He's not gonna. He is in this." For the Empire. He is fully tatted for the Empire. And that's where
Right.
it's like, oh shit, he did such an excellent job of acting this that I started to believe that he is, even though, even once they revealed he was a spy, because they revealed he was a spy earlier on, I was still like, his facial, like, I guess, like, acting was still portraying some doubt. I was like, oh, are they like planting the seed that he's spying for Dedra, but he's not? And then he makes that comment. I was like, no, he is fully in the Empire. And I was like, God, he did such a fantastic job
Well,
with
and
this.
and 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 that's honestly because again, you keep going back to the spy espionage style of story that this is. Like, why do people have to get upset about that? What is wrong with that type of a story? Again, like I got called out in a comment. I'm like, what? Why does this matter? This is
Well,
really good
again,
writing and a really good story. I'm just so
they're
confused.
talking more about. I think the reason they're getting more upset, and I don't want to get too hung up on this.
No,
They're
no, no, I don't
it's the
either.
whole because last week's story was the immigration one with the illegal immigrants and things like that and the undocumented workers.
Fair enough.
That's more of a politically charged conversation than what we're seeing now. I don't think that I don't think it has anything to do with the espionage or the spy or Cold War. I think it has more to do with that. But I will say again, I think Andor's story in this was a lot stronger than it was.
Yes.
I don't know. I still think I liked Cyril's story better. Like I enjoyed Cassian. I felt we got way more of him, obviously. And there were a lot of scenes where I loved him in, like when he was playing the fashion designer on Gorman and when he was doing his evaluation. But I don't know. I think it's a problem of they're not giving him the interesting plot line in this. The interesting plot line is Cyril and Dedra on Gorman in this rebellion, and that's what's interesting. Andor is trying to balance, and I guess this is where it does get interesting because Andor is trying to balance his part in the rebellion and his responsibility to Bix, who is losing herself because of A, she was almost raped last episode, but B, if you remember from the first season, she was tortured by the doctor that in the end of this episode was. And I honestly, I really did not like the way this episode ended. I felt like it was very, very abrupt that they just killed the doctor. So, like, he was, if I remember correctly, and you watched this more recently than I did, the doctor with Bix was a bigger plot line last season. Like, that's one of the reasons why she's so screwed up. I don't like how unceremoniously they just, she gets in so easily. She breaks into this Empire place that's supposed to be this big, like, lockdown new facility of the doctor. And she just breaks in, straps in the machine, and they blow up the building. I did not like that. I felt it was a very abrupt way to move Bix's story forward because they're trying to get her to move on from her past. I personally did not like that they just did it so abruptly. I don't think they should have dragged it on any longer, but I still feel like, to me, it was like, oh, well, we just all of a sudden just boom, he's done, end the story. Now, granted, I think that Luthen gave them this mission very deliberately to help Bix move on. I think that's Luthen's whole point is I need Bix to be in a hole. Like, I need her to be whole again to the best of her ability. And the only way to do that is for her to kill her past, essentially, leave her past behind. I don't know. I still feel like it was a little abrupt for me.
It's the case of you'd rather it be shown and not told for the most part, and you feel like it was more abrupt because, and not saying it wasn't shown, it was, but you have to just kind of like go. You're literally jumping from this point, and then you jump to this point, but there wasn't like any real connecting part, and you didn't really get shown like them setting up bombs to blow this place up or setting up the doctor getting ready to be murdered by Bix. We really didn't get to see any of that. And because you spend these whole 3 episodes focusing on Bix's trauma and Bix's Bix trying to overcome that trauma, you really want to relish and savor in that moment. So I get that.
Like I said, I understand why they did it. I don't have any problem with the fact that they did it. I just would have liked a little bit more of it. Because like the other plot line, in place of, like, we do get some Mon Mothma, obviously, but in place of Mon's story in this 3-episode arc, we focus way more on Luthen and the struggles of being, essentially at this point, Luthen is the head of the rebellion. He is the guy who is with Lonnie and his spy in the Empire, and with Andor and with Bix. He's the one giving orders. He's the one directing everything, putting the puzzle pieces together. And we do get to see a lot of his story of the crushing weight of leading this rebellion and what it takes and the sacrifices you have to make. And I really enjoyed that story. I guess I don't want to say more than Mon's story from last week, but it definitely ties way more directly into the overarching, like, what's going on than Mon's does.
Well, and that now leads to the honest question of, when is Luthen gonna die and how is he going to die?
Well, Luthen, was he not in Rogue One?
Luthen was not. I thought Luthen
wasn't. He wasn't. So he does die.
Luthen was not in Rogue One.
Okay.
Saul Guerrero was in Rogue One.
we know Bix has to die, obviously. We know that's coming. It's probably going to be the
Bix is
last
dead.
3 episodes. It's Bix is dead, unfortunately. That is going to happen. Honestly, I feel like it'd be better for them to kill Bix in these next 3 episodes as opposed to the last 3 episodes. Just because it'll give another year before. Because if memory so we still need to find K2SO. That's the other thing. So I think these next 3 episodes, I'm not saying they need to, but I have an inkling that these next 3 episodes, they're going to kill Bix and have K2SO and Andor meet for the first time, so that then in the last 3 episodes, it can bookend immediately into where we see him in Rogue One.
Sure.
I think that would be the best way for this. For me, what I would enjoy to see the most is these next 3 episodes. You kill off Bix, you have K2SO and Andor meet sometime, maybe at the end of these 3 episodes, whatever it is, have your year gap, and then have the last 3 episodes of the season be K2SO and Andor are much closer, because obviously in Andor, they didn't just meet. Like, they had known each other for a little while. So we have to get K2SO pretty soon. And it's already confirmed that Alan Tudyk is going to be in this as K2SO.
Sure.
So I think next episode, in order to kick off where we see Andor and Rogue One timeline-wise, it would make the most sense kill Bix now and kill Bix next 3 episodes and have K2SO and Andor meet and move forward from there. Because that's the thing. This show is not afraid of death at all. I mean, we'll talk about this after you make your point, but I really want to talk about what happened on Gorman and the brutalistic nature of what starting a rebellion looks like. But what were you going to say?
I'm not going to be disappointed if Bix is the next 3 episodes. However, I think it makes more sense to put her at the end and have Luthen die within the next 3 episodes, because one of the biggest things that hasn't happened yet is that Mon Mothma has not technically met Cassian yet. And he is a big part in the story. And Mon Mothma also has to technically be, I don't know, is Mon Mothma ever because I actually don't know in books or if they even say it in Rogue One, is Mon Mothma technically outed to the Empire that she's been working in this rebellion?
That's what I don't remember, to be totally honest with you. I know obviously she has to leave the Empire behind.
At some
she has
point.
To leave the Senate behind at some point. I personally think, and this is again total speculation, I think next episode you kill Bix and you have K2SO step in. I think last 3 episodes, the death of Luthen propels Mon Mothma into Luthen's position of being the leader of the rebellion. I think that's the story that I would be interested in seeing, and kind of my feeling of where things are going to go. I'm more than willing to be proven wrong, obviously, but I think that next episode you kill Bix and you set off the chain of events that leads to Andor meeting K2SO. Because here's the thing. I don't think Bix and K2 ever met. So my inkling is that Bix has to die before K2SO comes into the picture. So Bix dies, K2SO comes into the picture in the next 3 episodes, and then the last 3 episodes, Luthen dies, and that propels Mon Mothma to leave the Senate and become the leader of the rebellion that we know her to be. Because she's the leader of the rebellion in Rogue One, right? Like, she's already been outed and basically become, I don't necessarily think the face, but she is the leader of the rebellion when we jump to Rogue One.
So I'm the exact opposite. I think that Luthen has to die in order to kick off the chain of events, in order to get Mon Mothma and Cassian together. Bix and Cassian are now working together. The reason I don't think that they're going to kill Bix off next episode is because Bix is now in this with Cassian. And we need to see at least a year, or we need to see enough of them working together to get the full impact of everything. I do agree with you. I do think K2SO is going to be these next 3 episodes. I think K2SO did meet Bix. I think the whole reason why Cassian sticks I don't know what the full reasoning would be why, but I think the reason K2SO sticks around with Cassian is because K2SO does know Bix, and he does know Cassian inside and out. And so once Cassian loses Bix, K2SO is pretty much all that Cassian has at that point. That in the rebellion. But you get what I mean. I think it's the opposite. I think Bix dies in the last few episodes, which sets off the chain. Maybe it's like the first of the next 3 episodes, but that's what sets off the chain to lead Cassian
So
to the events of Rogue One, because I think that Luthen is much not to Cassian's story, but is much more of a overarching death that sets off a chain for everybody. It just it has to be him. It also gives more time if Luthen dies in the next 3 episodes to build more with what's his daughter's name again? Clea? Is it Clea or is
that's
it
not his. I thought that wasn't his daughter. I thought that was
not his
just an
daughter,
assistant. Is
an
she?
assistant?
Yeah, she's just like an assistant. Yeah,
Okay, well, it gives more
I'm
time
trying to
with
remember her name.
I don't remember if it's his daughter or not. It probably is just his assistant, but
I'm pretty sure it's not his
it
daughter. I'm
gives more
almost
time with
positive it's not.
it it gives more time with Clea to not just mourn Luthen, but for her to logically, um, step into that role and avenge Luthen over the course of like there's so many things you could speculate about.
Speculate,
Um,
yeah.
speculize. God, I'm fucking stupid. But
Yeah.
there's a lot that you can speculate about with it.
Well, so let me explain to you my reason behind why I think Bex has to die in these next 3
Do that, and
episodes.
then we've got to move on to the next
I
topic.
I know, I know, but, this will be my closing thoughts. I did wanna get into Cinta's death a little bit. I'm gonna say that first and then close out my thoughts. Um, I think Cinta's death was amazing in the fact that it shows what being an idiot it looks like. Cinta's the one who
Sure.
dies on Gorman, and
Yeah.
Vel, I believe is her name, is the one who, like, they were, like, lovers, they were together, and, like, there's that whole story, like, the little bit of a thing of, like, "Oh, I care about you," like, whatever. I love the fact that
Yeah.
she died in such a stupid way because it shows why you need to be serious and why you can't just
Yeah.
go like, this is a very serious point in time, and it takes a very like their whole thing is no one has blasters, everyone follows their orders, and this proves why.
Sure. And honestly, I was really sad about that death because I really did like those 2 characters, and I liked both of their relationship. I liked seeing how it built over time and then seeing how they worked together
Yeah.
within the rebellion. And so when that happened, I literally went, it makes sense, but I'm really sad because I
Yeah.
wanted to see
No,
more of that.
I think it was a necessary death, and I think it was necessary for her to die in that way. Like, yes, she dies so unceremoniously, but I think that is the perfect way to represent how disorganized the rebellion is. It's to show why we need to take this seriously and why you can't go all out on your own. We need to act as a cohesive unit because if we don't, people are going to die.
Yeah.
But flashing back to my last and final thoughts, I heard, and again, this is all speculation, I don't know if this is confirmed yet, that the events of the last 3 episodes almost directly butt into the events of where we see Cassian starting. Like, I'm pretty sure from what I heard, it literally is like the end of this last 3 episodes of Andor is going to be what kicks off the events of Rogue One and where we see Andor in Rogue One. In Rogue One, Andor has moved on from Bix completely. Like, he forms another relationship in Rogue One. He would not have done that if Bix dies in the last 3 episodes. He would only move on like that if Bix dies and then he has a year or more to move on and move past that.
It depends on how you look at it, because I don't see them as a lover relationship in Rogue One.
I
I
mean,
don't.
they kind of like I don't know. I kind of do. I mean, you have that whole scene where they die together in each other's arms on the beach.
That's not out of
Like,
okay, it's out of love, but
I
it's
thought
not
they
out of
did kiss. I thought they kissed.
nope,
I thought they did
nope,
kiss.
nope. I've never seen that relationship. I've never seen Jenna Erso and Cassian Andor as a lover relationship. I've seen it as a we are dying for the rebellion type of relationship. We are dying for the cause that we have set out to die for, and they're dying satisfied with what they're dying for, and the fact that they succeeded in their mission, the fact that Jen's avenged her father, the fact that Cassian is dying for the rebellion that he joined.
And I guess maybe Bix dying, I guess thinking about it like that, because I always saw it as more of a lovers type of relationship. But I guess if you put it in that context, it would make more sense for Bix to die at the last 3 episodes, because then it gives more of a reason for Andor to be satisfied with the fact that he dies, because he's completed his goal and has nothing to go back to. He recently lost Bix, has lost his will to live, is doing this one last mission for the rebellion and not coming back from it, so he can die and be with Bix. So I guess thinking about it like that, I guess I might lean, I don't want to say lean more towards your side, but I can understand. And if that's the way they go with it, I will not be dissatisfied with the direction that they take Andor's story and Bix's story. But anyways, moving on to another depressing death that has already happened. And the ramifications of that character's death. Let's talk about The Last of Us. This is episode 4 of season 2, right?
3.
Sorry,
of
episode
season
3
2.
of season 2. This was a great episode. From
Very good.
This episode, and again, I have not played the game. I know you've watched a playthrough, but this episode from very obviously makes a lot of change. This is probably one of the biggest changes from the game. Tommy does not go out to save Joel at all.
Or not
It is
to avenge
Dina
Joel.
and Ellie who goes out together.
Right. To avenge
Tommy
Joel,
goes,
obviously.
What did I say?
You said save Joel. Joel's already dead.
Oh, sorry. Tommy goes out to avenge Joel. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. No,
but that does not
good.
happen at all, and I don't think it's going to happen. They very clearly have pivoted on that for it to be Dina and Ellie that goes out.
Which I don't know how I feel about that. Look, if Tommy is eventually revealed to have gone out to go after Ellie, that's a very different thing. I
don't think that makes sense for the character that they've built for this show. Maybe it makes sense for the Tommy you know in the game. I don't think that the Tommy they've built up in this show is the type of Tommy that is going to go out for revenge.
I don't know how I feel about that, because Tommy is such an integral part of the second game. Again, not the whole reason Ellie goes out looking for Abby is because Tommy already went out. But she goes out at the beginning because she's looking for Tommy, because Tommy goes rogue and goes to try to kill Abby. I mean, honestly, I think there's a strong chance. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays in Jackson, and I'm not going to be hurt by it, especially because, like you said, there's a difference between the game Tommy and a TV show Tommy. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they did the inverse of what they did in the game, where Ellie goes out first, Ellie goes out for the revenge, and Tommy's the one catching up with Ellie, and Tommy's the one tracking Ellie.
That's very possible. That is very possible. In the sense of, well, and here's the thing. It would also make sense because with Ellie and Dina can't, like, the end of this episode, I know we're going to jump around a lot as we always do, but the end of this episode is to give us an idea of how big Wolf as an organization is. They have tanks. They have a lot more people than they originally anticipated. I mean, 16 probably wouldn't have even been enough. And in fact, it definitely would not have been enough. So the only way that Dina and Ellie can kind of get through is if Tommy goes to help, and maybe even takes people with him to go help. And it's very possible that they're just flipping the script on that, similar to how they flipped Tommy and Dina in Joel's death, where originally it was Tommy that was with Joel when he died, and in fact it was Dina. So now it's Dina and Ellie going out instead of Tommy. Well, it wasn't Tommy and Ellie going out together, but Tommy going out and Ellie going out. It's Dina and Ellie.
Well, because also the main reason Tommy sets out on his own is because he has seen Abby's face. He has seen the entire crew's face. He doesn't know what these people look like. He doesn't know at all who he's looking for or what he's which also makes sense why he didn't go out seeking for revenge, because he genuinely just has no idea. Like, okay, yeah, he has the name Abby. He has most of the names of everybody because Dina told Ellie told Tommy, and then brought it to the council. It would make more sense if he comes out second, and either he went rogue to go look for Ellie, or he genuinely is bringing people to go help defeat Isaac and his crew, his gang, the name's with me. Wolves.
Yeah, it's Wolf.
Wolf. Yeah.
WLF.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
Wolf.
It always slips my mind. I always keep thinking wool. It's not wool. That's not intimidating.
No. It's I believe it's WLF, but it's Wolf because their crest is a wolf.
Yeah. But I don't know. I look, I think that this episode, and we're going to talk a lot about it with Thunderbolts too, but this episode deals a lot with grief and loss, and getting over loss, while not letting it turn to revenge, because obviously in the beginning of this episode, Ellie lost Joel and doesn't have any inkling of how to hunt down these people. And so she kind of just has to sit there, and, she goes to the house, she goes and stares at Joel's clothes, looks at the box with his watch and his gun.
Yeah.
And it's her getting over it.
Also, she spent we have a time skip at the beginning of this episode because she spends 3 months recovering from her injuries in the hospital, which I'm just gonna say feels a little extreme for what injuries I saw her have. Like she got kicked and things, like she definitely had injuries, but 3 months felt like a long time to be in the hospital for what we see her get. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't know.
Unless it was like unless it was like a broken rib or something.
I was gonna say even broken ribs, 3 months in the hospital. Now, granted, she seemed there's the whole thing with Jesse when Jesse is training Ellie. And he's like, oh, you clearly stayed in shape in the hospital. And she's like, oh, yeah, I was doing crunches when they weren't looking and push-ups when they weren't looking, whatever. So very clearly she wasn't debilitated or anything while she was in the hospital. She was still very much mobile.
Sure.
But yeah, I just got to say, my 2 favorite characters of this season so far, it's not going to be a surprise whatsoever. It's Dina. Dina's number 1. I love Dina, not just because the actress is one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen. I have such a celebrity. Oh my god, she's so beautiful. I love.
my god.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Please don't simp. Please don't simp on the podcast. Oh my god.
Okay, that's all I'll say. I think she is a beautiful human being. I love her acting. Anyways, she also plays Dora, by the way, if you didn't know that. She is the live action Dora. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she not just because I think she's gorgeous, but I love her character. I love Dina so much. My second favorite is Jesse. I love Jesse.
Jesse's really good.
And one of the things that I wrote this down is it was 8-3 was the vote. And you can almost guess who those 3 votes were. It was most likely Tommy. Tommy is the obvious one. Obviously, Tommy voted for them to go.
Yes.
Jesse would have been one of the other votes because he does allude to maybe he's not going to, but I think it's pretty obvious that Jesse did. I think Jesse voted because he knew that whether he voted for or against, Ellie was going to go anyway. So he'd rather vote for so that Ellie would have support. That is my reasoning. And then I always forget the name of Tommy's wife. It's Maria, right?
Maria.
Yeah, Maria. I believe she voted for. I do believe that Maria voted for as well. Because I don't know who else on the council would have voted for. Because it was only 3, and there's only 3 characters that we know on the council that care about Joel to the degree that would require a yes, or that would lead to a yes vote. Because even after you get Ellie gave a fantastic speech. Granted, it was all a lie, but it was a fantastic speech nonetheless.
Right.
But I think the speech that was even better, I love this speech, was Seth. I think Seth in this episode. Seth came in clutch. He started out as a homophobic piece of shit in the first episode with his drunken comments at the dance to now being the homie. He's hooking Dina up. He's hooking Ellie up, and he defied the council to give a actually really well thought out and meaningful speech as to not necessarily why we should save Joel, but why we should save anyone who was put, or not. Again, it's not save, but why we should not necessarily seek revenge, but why we should go after someone who harmed our own, because we'll seem weak.
Right.
We'll seem like we can't defend ourselves. If you kill our own and we do nothing about it, what does that say about us? Now, the logic that's
Right.
given in contrast is we don't want to be like them. We don't want to seek revenge. We don't want to be fueled by rage, which is, they're both very valid arguments. And I can understand why the council voted against, whether I agree or disagree. I think it is a very difficult position to be put in, of you're going specifically, the whole vote is to send 16 people out and execute Abby. There's no saving. I know I keep saying saving, but you're not saving. The only goal is to execute Abby, not even her people,
Yeah.
just Abby.
Yeah.
And there's no net benefit other than not seeming weak and taking a threat off the board that we don't even know if they're going to come back.
Well, and honestly, this whole topic of conversation wouldn't even be happening if they knew exactly why Joel was being killed. Because all everybody knows why Joel was killed was because, oh, it's just a group of people who murdered him, and that was it.
Yeah.
Nobody
they have no
actually,
context.
even Dina doesn't know why Joel was killed, what he did in Salt Lake City. Tommy knows that Ellie is immune, and that's it. No, maybe Maria. Maybe
Tommy doesn't, to my understanding, Tommy still doesn't even know that Joel did what he did in the hospital. Like, no
Tommy doesn't
one
even know.
knows, except for very clearly Ellie knows. And obviously I know we're going to get that through flashbacks of her putting the pieces together or finding out. Joel doesn't know that she knows, but it's very clear that Ellie does know, and that's why she's pissed off.
Sure.
But even because we have that whole commentary where Ellie's in the hospital and the psychiatrist comes in and is like, oh, Joel felt bad and he knows what he did and he saved you. And that's when Ellie's like, yeah. Like, maybe, and here's the thing, maybe she didn't know for certain, but I feel like after that comment of, oh, I saved her, and that's why like, if she didn't know before, she knows now why she's still alive.
Well, I think she does know, and I think that in that moment, it's Ellie just acting with Gale. Ellie, because in the game they do genuinely have like a whole character conversation moment in which Joel basically, like, he doesn't outright tell her, like, yeah, this is what I did, but Ellie puts the pieces together, confronts him about it, and Joel has no defense, so she knows.
Yeah.
Like, if Joel was lying or making up a story, there'd be doubt, but at least she would 95% know, but then have the doubt with 5% because Joel isn't actually telling the truth. No, like, he has no defense. And
yeah,
there's actually a line in the trailer for season 2 in which Ellie looks at Joel and goes, "You swore," which clearly is alluding to the eventual confrontation in which Ellie will confront Joel about everything that he had done. But I agree with you as far as Dina and Jesse. I think they're wonderful additions to this cast. And I love Isabella Merced as an actress. I think she's phenomenal. And everything except Madame Web. I think she's phenomenal. I don't blame the actress for Madame Web. I blame the writing for Madame Web.
I was gonna say that's not anyone's fault other than the writer's fault. Like, but not saying that all the actresses in that movie are phenomenal actresses. Like, I love Sydney Sweeney because she's beautiful, but I don't think she's the best actress ever, obviously. And Madame Web definitely did not prove that. But yeah, anyway, back to the last, like,
I think, I don't know, man. The biggest thing that I'm wondering is how Jesse comes back into the fold. Which it
do you
might
think
not be
Tommy and Jesse are gonna pair up together to go after Dina and
that could
Ellie?
very well be the case, because in the game, if I remember correctly, because obviously Tommy's already gone, Jesse just comes after Dina and Ellie, and comes to their aid, and that's the whole story. It could be both Tommy and Jesse, and then they write out Tommy a little later. There could be a point in which Tommy will eventually go out on his own and get ahead of everybody else. That'll be like a later on thing. Because once he starts on the quest for revenge, he might tell Jesse, get these two home, get them safe. I'm going to go and do this. because
Yeah.
he wants to, because he's trying to protect
I mean,
both of them.
that is, I mean, and maybe that's where we end this season off,
Sure.
because again, we know that this isn't
Sure.
covering all of game 2, so maybe that's where we end this because what, we're on episode 3, we have 4 more episodes left because we only have 7
Yeah.
episodes this season, so
Yeah.
it's gonna be interesting to see. I wrote a note in here that I wanted to read verbatim. I wrote, also Dina not gay, boo, because they have that whole dialogue with Ellie and Dina in the tent. And man,
Yeah.
love her or hate her, but Ellie's actress does. I think she does a really good job. I think she
I
gets a
love
little
Bella
bit too
Ramsey.
much hate.
I think
Yeah,
she's
I think
great.
Bella
Obviously,
Ramsey. I think Bella Ramsey gets, because like one of the scenes that I think is good. I know what you're gonna say. Obviously, she doesn't look like Ellie from the game at all. I think that is a
yeah.
very valid criticism. I genuinely believe that is a very valid criticism. I don't think she's a bad actress though, and I think that
No.
people are just conflating the
Yes.
two.
Yes.
But like, the reason I bring that up now is because they have that scene with Ellie and Dina in the tent, and they're talking about, Dina is like, oh, I have a stupid question, and she was like, oh, am I a good kisser? And Dina makes the comment of, oh, that, like, it didn't mean anything, the kiss didn't mean anything, and Ellie's face, like, very was hurt. She's hiding it, but you can very much tell through her facial expressions that she's like, oh, oh. And because Dina makes the comment of like, oh, well, you've kissed women before, like, you're gay, I'm not. Like, she like explicitly says it, and she also makes the comment about how she's already been together with Jesse again since the whole incident with the kiss happened. But then, and this gives me a little bit of hope because I really like them together. I think they're very cute together. Is Dina makes the comment at the end of that whole conversation of like, I wasn't that high, and you're like, hmm? Was there a
Yeah.
little bit of feeling there? Don't spoil
Yeah.
it because I know you obviously know where this goes because of the game, but
Well, there's a massive twist that you're gonna like sit there. I already want you to, like, if I watched the episode
no,
before you, I want you to record yourself that entire episode, because I know there's something that you're not gonna expect that comes. I'm like, oh my
fuck
god,
you.
oh my
Uh,
god.
I don't. I'm not even gonna look at you. Put your face away. I'm blocking you. I'm gonna look over here because I don't want to see you. But if Dina betrays, if Dina dies, whatever. If there's any sense of Dina being a traitor or whatever in this show, I am walking out. I will record my reaction of me walking out my goddamn bedroom because Anyways, but yeah,
Sure.
I love them together. I think that I actually, one other thing that we haven't talked about yet that felt very shoehorned in there, but I'm curious to see where it goes. Was the cult of, like, we got like zero
Yeah.
context for anything about any, like, they communicate via whistles. They have a like disciple, or what I wrote, I think I wrote it down. A prophet or something like that they follow. Um Prophet. I wrote down scar-faced wanderers. That's literally all we know about them. We also know that they all get slaughtered. And then
Yeah.
obviously Ellie and Dina come across them, and they have that whole thing of like, was this Abby's crew? If this was, like, they slaughtered the children too. I don't think it's Abby's crew personally, because I think that would make no sense for the little we know about them not wanting to hurt innocents. Even though
Sure.
Abby, I think, has gone over the edge and she's probably is going to hurt innocents. I don't think she'd have a reason to kill all these people. So I'm curious to see, maybe this is the stalkers that we saw that are the more intelligent that now use guns. I don't know. I do feel like it
Sure.
was a weird shoehorn in here of like, we need to get this plot thread started somehow. So we're just going to show you these random wanderers and then show them all
Sure.
dead and leave you with a big question mark.
Well, and next week
So we got like
we're
nothing.
delving. Next week we're delving a lot more into Wolf as a group and a faction.
Yeah, that's my assumption, and I'm assuming that maybe Abby didn't have anything to do with it directly. I do definitely think Wolf as an organization had something to do with the extermination of the cult, but I'm
Sure.
curious as to the reason as to why, and I guess if we get any more context as to what this organization even is. Because again, it just felt a little shoehorned in there just to get a plot thread started. And also for the shock value of, oh, they've all been killed and then Dina can't handle it and whatever. But
Right.
I don't know. I am curious. Like, it served its purpose in that, but I still am like, like, cool.
I get you. No, I do. But all in all, I think this was a very good episode. It was well written. It was well shot. Oh my god, some of the shots in this episode were fantastic.
Oh yeah. Oh,
But
the
the
shots of them like going throughout and on their way to Seattle and just the environment of them. I love the wilderness. I love like rivers and creeks and mountains and things. I mean, like that's where I was this past week. Like I love things like that. I'm a Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. Like I spent a lot of my life camping. These shots make me want to go. So like these are actual places I want to go so bad. They're so beautiful. And the show just does a fantastic job of capturing that.
sure.
I will say, I meant to say this complaint with Andor because Andor is really, really bad about this, but Last of Us is also a perpetrator. And I know that it's a very niche use case. Why can't we shoot everything in ultra wide? I watch because my TV is broken, I watch a lot of things on my ultra wide monitor and they just don't look that good on ultra wide. They don't fill the screen. They feel very like condensed. I wish, especially with Andor, I wish it was a little higher quality in its filming in terms of like Last of Us looks beautiful. I think it's shot in 4K. I don't think Andor is, but I just wish that like I guess now I'm spoiled with like IMAX, for instance, like watching like multiple movies in IMAX recently. Like I want that for everything. And I know that's asking a lot, but I don't know. Small complaint.
Very
Very
small
niche, small
complaint.
complaint.
But the writing of this episode was good. The cinematography was good. The performances were phenomenal. I loved how they dealt with the grief between Tommy and Ellie both. And
Yeah.
look, man, I with what they changed from the game, I'm excited to see where they take the story in different directions and what they do with what they still have from the game. I'm excited to see that all play out.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm right there with you.
next
Do you want to get
Sunday, new
into the
episode.
main topic of conversation now?
Spoilers ahead for Thunderbolts. Let's talk about
Big spoilers because this I watched Koi's review. I watched Koi's non-spoil. I typically don't watch anything before going into the theaters. I did watch Koi's non-spoiler review just to get Koi is the one of my most trusted sources of information that there is. But he made a very big point of do not go into this movie with you. There is it, and I have fully after seeing it twice now, and also seeing the audience reaction to these movies when I was watching it. I'm curious to see what if your audience was the same as mine. But go into this movie knowing nothing. Don't spoil anything. I beg you, if you have not seen this movie, if you have not seen Thunderbolts, please click off now. I'm going to give you 2 seconds. 1, 2. So Carson, let's talk about the new Avengers movie that we just watched.
Yeah. That was going to be my lead-in was Thunderbolts or the new Avengers. Which
we were wrong.
actually...
which makes total sense. The second I will say, and I know we're jumping to the end here. I want to start from the beginning, but I just want to get this out of the way first because I cannot hold it in. I felt like such a fucking moron sitting in that theater going, why did I think it was going to be Dark Avengers? Why did I not think New Avengers? It makes so much sense that it was I actually, and I want to see if I can show this on camera. I took a picture in the theater. I didn't post this one online. I took a picture of the end credit scene of him holding up the Wheaties box that says New Avengers on it, just because I wanted to immortalize the moment that I felt like an idiot. Because I was like, God, like Dark Avengers would have made sense, but New Avenger, it makes so much more sense. Okay. Let's start from the beginning. I could not hold that in. I apologize. We'll talk about New Avengers more later on and what that means for the greater MCU. But let's start from the beginning. we
So
have not
something
talked about
that
this movie pretty much at all.
mm,
So
mm,
I
mm,
know
mm,
some of your thoughts, but I want to hear them.
so something that this film did that uh Captain America 4 did very well was it made me care about characters that I never thought in a million years I'd actually want to care about on the same level as somebody. It's not exactly the same level as Steve Rogers, but it's closer to the same level as Steve Rogers. Like, I'm excited for Avengers Doomsday because I actually care about every single one of these characters going into it. I think in every
Yeah.
single way I have some sort of attachment or an endearment to these characters. More so along the lines similar to like what I did with the Guardians, where you really understand Chris Pratt's character, but you love these characters because they're all really
Mm.
well done. They may not all be fleshed out,
I
but
mean,
they're
this
all really well done.
this
Um,
movie very much feels like what you felt watching Guardians. It's a bunch of characters. You know more about these characters than you know about the Guardians do when you watch the first Guardians movie, but it is still that feeling of I don't really care about these characters all that much, so you need to make me care. And I think they do that really well. Similar to Guardians, just going off of
but
that comparison that you brought up.
But you know, coming out of Captain America 4, I actually found myself really caring about Sam Wilson and actually wanted to see more of that Captain America. And walking out of this film, I wanted to see more of Yelena, Red Guardian, U.S. Agent, Ghost. Obviously, I always want to see Bucky, but I actually had like
Yeah.
a want and care to see more from those characters again. And this film really does feel like we're actually, you know, we have a clear roadmap. We're building towards something. And this was a big stepping stone for that because the Marvel Cinematic Universe hasn't really had that clear anchor point as far as like, okay, this is where we're heading, this is what we're doing. Really, since Endgame, like it's all. I'm not saying it's been pointless meandering, but it didn't really complement the overarching story. Now, obviously, behind the scenes, we know that the overarching story was changed last minute, so maybe that played a
Yeah.
factor
Well,
into it in
in
some regard. But
one thing
I'm
I want to
yeah,
point out since you bring that up, I did not realize this until I was scrolling through Instagram, and it is true. You know what was supposed to release the same weekend as Thunderbolts released? Instead of watching Thunderbolts this weekend, we were supposed to be watching Kang. We were supposed to be watching Kang Dynasty. The
oh,
original release plan for the Marvel slate for when Thunderbolts came out for this weekend, May 2nd, it was supposed to be Kang Dynasty. It was supposed to be the kickoff of that.
yeah,
So I will say, very glad they didn't go that direction. Not because I didn't think Kane was an interesting villain. I just feel like we definitely would not have had enough time and build up to get to that point of
sure,
it feeling like a palpable threat to which Kang should feel like.
sure.
Granted, they would have changed the previous movies and things maybe would have felt a little different. But I feel like Thunderbolts, from the second I sat down in the theater and the second we see the first shot, the first thought of my brain is, "Oh, this is different.
Yeah,
This feels." I shouldn't say this is different. I should say the opposite. I should feel this feels like home. This feels like Marvel because I feel like this movie is one of the first Marvel movies in a while that feels like they started with an idea and they filmed that idea. That's one of the biggest problems that we had and everyone had with Brave New World is it very clearly showed signs of reshoots and rewrites and changing of the
yes,
story. You could tell that for me, you could tell that from the second it started. You could tell that immediately. With this movie, first of all, granted, I saw this in IMAX, so it's gonna look amazing, but the visuals of this movie and the color grading of this movie for me really showed that this movie was a cohesive piece of storytelling and
yeah,
that you were going to get a complete start to finish, whether it builds to the greater MCU as we'll talk about at the end of our review with the post credit scene. You really get a start to finish movie, not a
yeah,
we're building to something, not we're just setting the
yeah,
stage, kind of like honestly like some parts of Brave New World felt like, even though it did kind of wrap up its own story, um but it really felt like, oh, we're back to where Marvel, because and I did not look up this one to double check this one, but apparently the weekend that Thunderbolts released is coincidentally also the 17th anniversary of the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
Which is what kicked off the MCU.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't watch this movie. And I don't think I'm ever like because
What
of
do you
how
mean you watched it
uncertain.
twice?
Well, yeah, yeah. Thanks, Dick.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I know. Look, I can't watch this movie and honestly say for certain that look, the MCU is back on track. The MCU is back to what
Yeah.
it used to be. You can't obviously say that. It was a
Yeah,
very, very
because
good movie though. And they've
yeah,
had
because
too
they do
many.
have good movies and bad movies, so you can't take one as a telling. I will say this movie gets me really excited for the future of the MCU because I do think that it somewhat can be marked as a starting point for a new chapter because this movie is the end of phase 5 of the MCU and Fantastic Four is the kickoff for phase 6.
Yeah.
So they ended off phase 5, whether probably the most divisive phase of the MCU, really, really well. It's more
Yeah.
of a question of can they continue that into the kickoff of the next phase, with that being phase
Well,
6.
and honestly, I think that look, let me just get into some of the complaints I have with this movie because the complaints are fewer than
Mhm.
the compliments. I'm going to compliment this movie a lot, but
Yeah.
it has the typical MCU problems. If you're somebody who looks at it from a film perspective, those complaints are still going to be there. It's got some bad CGI. Yeah, sure. At its core, I guess you could say it's a reused generic story from a Marvel format that you've seen before. Good conquering evil. Yeah, sure, whatever.
I
It's
mean,
got
that's
those
just any
things.
story. Like that's good.
It's
Good is
it's
all.
any
Like
story.
that's like the only story in the MCU history that did not do that was Infinity War. And now, granted, that's why Infinity War is so beloved. But
Yeah.
that's the only MCU story that doesn't have a cohesive start to finish story of good conquering evil. And again, Infinity War, eventually they conquer evil in the next movie. So
Well, and the thing that I had to tell people this. Not every story has to be like Infinity War. And I get this is the
mhm.
36th movie. And so you have 36 movies and only one of them they actually lose. Okay, sure, it might get old after a while, but that's never been the story of a superhero. Like villains are not
Like
always
what?
going to defeat
Yeah, are you?
good.
What do you like? The general public is not going to want to go and watch a story where they like first of all, if the good guys lose, you know that they're just going to win in the next movie anyway. You know that they're never going to just definitively end with with the bad guys winning. That's so even if they do, again, it's the story of Infinity War and Endgame where the bad guys win and then the good guys come back and win. So even if the good guys do lose, you know they're going to have to win eventually. Otherwise, what was the point? Like
Right. And I hear those complaints. Those complaints, I think, in some regard, are wrong, because because of the fact of it's not always going to be the villains win. And here, this is the positive about it, and this is what I compare it to something like Invincible. And my friend who I watched this with, who actually had a lot of these complaints, it kind of understood and actually is more on my side now once I explained it to him. Invincible, and I'm not saying it's on the same level. Invincible at its core tells a very generic, very basic superhero story. Kid finds out he has superpowers, just like his dad. He knows his dad's a big superhero. His dad is revealed to be evil, and he has to save the world against his own father, who has protected this world for a long time. That's a very generic story. Like,
yeah,
honest to God, that is a very generic origin story. What elevates that story is its writing and the dialogue between all the characters and the character moments
mhm,
and how the writers develop that world. And here with
yeah,
Thunderbolts, it's the same thing. Yeah, the story is generic, but the writing between all the characters, between Yelena having a big emotional scene with Red Guardian, or even down to the jokey moments of Red Guardian and Bucky or whatnot, it all feels intentional, and it feels like a type of writing that elevates the generic story, which transcends that story into something that's more than it actually is. And that's where Thunderbolts that's where Thunderbolt thrives.
Yeah.
Obviously it takes these characters that, in a lot of ways, and specifically with Taskmaster, it takes characters we don't care about, or characters who are misfits, or people who we really didn't like see a lot of, and it makes us care for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then, I mean, I think Taskmaster is kind of the result of there was nothing they could do to make us care about Taskmaster. I think they fucked up Taskmaster so bad, and they acknowledged that there was no way to. And this is nothing against the actress who plays Taskmaster. She was dealt a
No.
bad hand. I think it's
Yeah.
more of I definitely think we will get an actual Taskmaster later on, but I think they acknowledge with like killing Taskmaster so unceremoniously, just getting domed so immediately and so abruptly. I think that is their response to, we understand that we cannot bring this back. Like, we tried, and we just understand that there's nothing we can do to make you care about this. So let's focus on the characters that we do feel like we are going to make you care about.
Well, and that leads to one of my bigger actual like complaints with this film, as far as like a story. Don't bring Taskmaster back at all. Just let her die in an unending thread, because don't bring her back just to kill her off and then do nothing with it. What they should have done to make it more interesting is kill off Taskmaster. I'm okay with killing her off first thing like that. That was fine. But then have it affect Yelena in a whole different way than it just being like one brush off scene where it's like, that person I killed, you knew her. Yeah, she had a hard life. Do more with it. Have some
disagree.
Okay, and I'm very curious to see your disagreement here, because I'm being completely honest here. There's no way you're gonna convince me that isn't what they should have done. But please go right ahead.
No. I'll let you finish your thought, but I'll let you finish your thought, because I know I interrupted you there. But I disagree. I strongly disagree.
They just should have. It also would have created more of a thing for Ghost, because I'll be honest, everybody in this film, some way, shape, or form, whether it's subtle or it's out like for everybody to see, everybody does have an arc in this film, except Ghost. Ghost really does not have that much of an arc. The thing that Ghost has going for her is
she's the only one with superpowers, technically.
She's
other
the
than,
only
I guess,
one with
the super
superpowers,
serum,
technically.
but
And yeah, she's a misfit, but like they really don't do anything with Ghost in this film. I care about
I
that
agree.
character.
I agree with that criticism.
I care about that character because of the fact that, she really was fleshed out very well in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but then they just don't do anything really with her in this film. And the only reason she's here is because she's a misfit, and she just kind of like joins these people for the sake of joining these people. I guess her arc is saying that she wants revenge against Valentina, but that's just me and my Marvel brain kind of like putting that together for the sake of putting it together. That's not even like really a movie thing. But like, back to what I'm saying, Taskmaster's death should have created some sort of animosity between, it doesn't have to be a whole long thing, between Yelena and Ghost, and that would have given more weight to Ghost's character. Ghost still doesn't have to die, but it would have created some sort of connection at all, to have some sort of weight and character for Ghost within this film, as opposed to just being there for the sake of being there. And so I hate that they just killed off Taskmaster so needlessly. And I get that character was very needless to begin with. I don't like that character at all. Black Widow is my least favorite Marvel movie. And so I wish, if they were going to do it, give there more of a reason after, as opposed to just being one scene where it's like, the person I killed, you knew her. Yeah, she had a hard life, and then leave it at that. Look, it doesn't fully take me out of it, but just give more. Like, you were so close to doing something very interesting with that, and actually giving a reason for this to happen and justify it, and instead you just didn't. And you just let it kind of die in the most boring way. And so that's like my real only story complaint with this film, where I'm like, I wish they would have done that, because they were so close and they just didn't do anything with it. Now, please go ahead, Brandon, and tell me why I'm wrong.
So, okay, first of all, like I said, I fully agree with you on the Ghost thing. I think that's one of my only real major criticisms. I feel like Ghost is very much, we care about Yelena, we care about Red Guardian, we care about Bucky. Like, Bucky obviously is Bucky. Like, we care about Bucky. We care about John Walker. We do, because he has that whole family like thread and through line of, oh, he got like I love, again, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but the reaction from the audience both times I watched the movie of Yelena's line of John Walker going, "Oh, no comments for me," and she's like, "I don't need to. You already know you're a piece of shit, and so does your family." The whole audience like audibly like fucking like gasped so loud. They're like,
Yep.
they're like,
Wow.
God damn! I there was the second time I watched the movie, there was a couple sitting next to me. The guy was very clearly a huge Marvel fan. Guy was so giddy watching this movie. Very clearly had a good time. But his girlfriend made a comment after that, like as the credits were rolling, of man, Yelena's comment was so out of hand. Like, why does she have to do that to him? But like we have an emotional through line for every character except for Ghost. They try to add one in there where, oh, I grew up in a lab, I grew up experimenting, I have to have this suit so that my body doesn't dematerialize. Like, they try to add that, and it does work to some extent. It definitely does not work as much as all the other characters and members of the new Avengers.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on that, the Ghost one. I disagree with you to a certain extent as to Taskmaster's death. I think that the only purpose that it served and the only purpose it needed to serve for this movie was shock value. Because here's the thing. Why should Yelena care about Taskmaster's death? They were never close. She watched so many people from the Red Room die. Her entire life, her entire flashback sequence that we see of her is her leading to one of her friend's deaths for her first test of the Red Room. She is so desensitized to the people around her dying and her friends dying and people that she grew up with dying. The only one that truly affects her, the only death that, like, I guess technically the first one does, because that's why it's what she sees in the flashback. But the only other death that we see genuinely affect her is her sister's death. That's obviously a big plot point with this movie, is Black Widow's death and how it affects Yelena and how she's mad at her dad, Red Guardian, for not like being there for her. But why should, like, what is the reason why Yelena should care? I think her comments made total sense of, she lived a hard life, she killed a lot of people, and she died. Like, that's all it really needed to be. I understand that, like, they could have done more, and I understand that from a fan perspective of loving the character of I mean, Taskmaster's entire thing is being so insanely intelligent that they don't need to be a super soldier or a superhero to beat people, because they are so smart they can tactically like counter all their moves. And we do even see that to a lesser extent when we see her fight with Ghost. But I think that Taskmaster going out the way that Taskmaster did also goes to show that this isn't the Taskmaster you know from the comic books, because the Taskmaster you know from the comic books would not have just died from being domed in the head like that. That would not have happened. That is not how like, that's not at all how this would have happened. And I think that Taskmaster's death, yes, could have held more emotional weight. I don't think it needed to, because that's not what Yelena would not have cared. Why is Yelena supposed to give a shit? Like none of them care. The whole point is that they're all pieces of shit who don't care about each other. They don't care about other people until the end. And even then, in the end, they're not really together because they like each other. They're there together because that's what's necessary and what is going to propel them forward. Like, you have the whole thing where John Walker is still an asshole at the end of the movie. Ghost is still an asshole at the end of the movie. Like, Yelena is still not a leader at the end of the movie. Like, they haven't, like, the characters have grown, yes, but they still are at their core who they are, and that carries over throughout the entire movie, and that is people who ultimately aren't going to care about something like Taskmaster getting domed. Like, I agree that as the character of Taskmaster deserved way better. And if they did the Taskmaster character right, it should have held a lot more weight. But I think yes, the whole purpose of Taskmaster dying was so that Marvel could, ironically enough, tie up their own loose ends, as the whole point of them being there is to tie up the loose ends of DeFontaine or Fontaine. But there's a Don. He's not the Secretary of Fence. He's the Secretary of Defense. Shut the fuck up, woman. Shut up. The fuck up. She does. By the way, it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus, right? Is
Julia Louis-Dreyfus? Yes.
She phenomenal job. Phenomenal job in this movie. Makes you just hate her so much, but she does a phenomenal job acting. But yeah, I know I'm sidetracking a lot, but that's kind of my reason as to why I disagree with you as to why I think Taskmaster's death was handled the way it was.
I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily fully agree with you, but I do see what you're saying, and in some regard, it does make sense. Going forward into talking about Fontaine for a second, because oh my god, let's get into this.
She is a character you love to hate. She is a character you there's nothing you can do but love to hate her, because by God, do they just make her the most piece of shit out of all these pieces. Like her whole comment of when she's having the conversation with Mal of like, one day you'll come to realize that there's bad people and worse people. And it's like, yeah, you're the worst person. You are that piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, and I bring her character up specifically because look, she does a very good job, and exactly for what Marvel set her up to be, she's exactly who you want her to be. She is a piece of garbage character. She that's her whole character. As a menacing villain, not so much. She's not really that menacing.
No.
But
I don't think she needs to be. I don't think that
she doesn't have to be. No.
They never built her up to be this menacing villain. They built the menacing villain from the start of this movie to be void and to be honestly not even void. It is the internal conflicts that they all struggle with that they have to overcome. That's the main villain of this story. And I love that. And that's where I feel like, yes, there is a lot of elements of this story that are very generic Marvel, obviously, but I feel like the fact that the main villain is at the end of the day their own internal struggles is a very creative and new approach to Marvel that we haven't really gotten before.
Yeah, no, it's the idea of overcoming your own personal struggles, and I love that. I think that was another thing that just elevated the generic story. It made it transcend more than what it actually could have been, and that's what I love about it. But yeah, no, it's the situation more so, and overcoming their own personal depression and grief that is the real enemy of the film. That being said, I can't like not acknowledge that, like, for Fontaine, like, okay, like some of her lines, she says it, I'm like, that's not intimidating at all. But I'm also like, that is her character. That's her character.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she's very much a cartoon villain. The entire purpose of her existence is not even to be like, oh, she's a comic book villain. No. She's a cartoon villain. She is comic level of evil. Like, she is mustache twirly levels of evil.
Yeah. And honestly, one of my favorite things about this film that I love of why this group comes together in the first place, I love that they come together essentially for revenge, because all they want until Bucky comes along, all they want is to kill Valentina, and they want revenge. That's why they stick together in the long run.
I mean, even till the end, Red Guardian still, after everything that happens, I'm going to kill that woman. Whoa.
And it's funny, he also has no.
I will break.
He has no reason to. Well, okay, I guess he has reason to, but also it's like one of those things of like, he wasn't even there in the incinerator, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill her. Like, what? No.
Well, no. It's because of he tried to kill Yelena.
No, I get you. I get you. I'm just giving it a hard time. But one of my favorite moments genuinely was them all at the very end coming together using their various powers to protect people, because and this is what I meant, like their arcs are here, but
Various
it's
powers or
subtle,
lack thereof.
or lack thereof. It's and like I said, some of their arcs are subtle. The whole Red Guardian arc is never really talked about the entire movie. It's said at the very beginning when he talks about how, when Elena's like, Dad, do you I think I'm depressed, and he starts to go like, I mean, yeah, I mean, I wish I was a hero again. Like, do you think I want to do this
Yeah.
limo thing because I want to? No, I wish I was out there kicking butt, being a hero and protecting people. That's his
Yeah,
whole
it's like,
arc.
yeah.
Girl that he just protected and staring back at him, and like, I just saved these people. I'm fulfilling exactly what I want. What is my purpose?
Yeah, well, it goes back to that first scene where we're reintroduced to Red Guardian, where Yelena goes to talk with him, and it's like, I don't feel fulfilled. Like, do you feel fulfilled? And he's like, oh, yeah, very full, very filled. Which, one thing
He's
I want
not.
to talk about with this movie, and we'll talk about this after this conversation. One complaint that a lot of Marvel movies have had recently is people feel like they have been forcefully made funny. They have forced, like the screaming goats from Ragnarok, and is
Yeah.
or not it was Ragnarok that had the screaming goats, right?
No, it was Love and Thunder.
Thank you. Love and Thunder that had this. People feel like they've been very like forceful with their humor. And one thing I want to talk about after we finish this conversation is how I feel like this movie is genuinely funny. Me and the audience genuinely laughed out loud a lot of times during this movie. This moment was one of them when he goes, "Oh yeah, very full, very filled." But like that is his whole arc. Like Red Guardian completes his arc of, "Oh, I you very quickly realize he's not fulfilled. He hates his
Yeah.
life. He
Yeah.
is very unsatisfied, and he is going to jump at any opportunity that presents itself to him, whether that's originally working for Valentina and then immediately afterwards taking down Valentina. He is going to jump on that opportunity to give him purpose."
Right. And so, I mean, Red Guardian's arc, where it's subtle, it comes full circle. Bucky's arc, which I guess if you're not really paying attention, and this is why I feel like it was better on second viewing, because I was able to pick up on more stuff and whatnot. Bucky's arc is also very subtle, because the whole
Yeah.
point is he puts on the congressman badge because he wants to protect people, and he feels lost without Steve. That's been his whole character since Endgame, is that he doesn't know really who he is without Steve. And so he tries to protect people without being the Winter Soldier by putting on that Congress badge. When that's not enough, he fully embraces his Winter Soldier persona again, but it's to join with these group of people to stop Valentina. He's trying to stop Valentina in both things, but he realizes that he has to become this in order to do this, and he has to be the hero in this light in order to do it. And that's his whole arc, is forming this team again and being a guiding force for them. That's really Bucky's presence in this. If you don't really see an arc in him, that's really his presence. Is he pushes the plot along. He's a big guiding presence because he's been through a lot. He's was in the last Avengers movie, so he's been through a lot, and
and
he's the guiding force of this entire plot. U.S. agents.
you might. Well, I want to halt on Bucky really quickly before we move on. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sebastian Stan is one of the longest standing actors in the MCU.
No, he is. No, he is.
Because he was
right now is
in the original Captain. He was in First Avenger, right? Very briefly, but he was. Sebastian Stan played Bucky in First Avenger, correct?
Not briefly. He's a supporting character in that film.
Yeah. So Sebastian Stan is like the longest standing Marvel. Like, granted, you still have like Chris Hemsworth and Happy Hogan and in some of those original Avengers, but like Sebastian Stan is honestly probably also he has one of the most some of the most appearances, and he is in Infinity War, he is in Endgame, he is in Falcon Winter Soldier. I mean, it's literally named after him. He is in Brave New World. He is in granted, Brave New World just an end credit scene, but like Sebastian Stan has had one of the longest arcs in the MCU as Winter Soldier.
Right. And so, I mean, yeah, his arc, whereas it's subtle, it's also not like that like it's not crazy for him, but it was
I mean,
still
I feel
good
like
for what
it's
it needed to be.
it is the necessary story to see him come into his own again. That's his whole thing is now he is a leader of his own team where he is pulling off of what he learned from Steve to be able to be his own person. And you have that
Sure.
funny dialogue. I don't want to jump to this because I want the last thing we talk about to be the end credit scene, but you do have that little bit in the end credit scene of like, oh, like I sat down with Sam to talk about the whole like Avengers copyright thing.
Yeah.
And like very clearly he's taking that leadership role in that step to be like, no, I am going to be this next Captain America in the sense of not necessarily Captain America like Sam Wilson is, but I'm going to be a leader in my own right.
Right. Well, and that's a perfect segue to talk about US Agent's arc, which is a lot of very subtle. It's not even really talked about. You get one flashback scene with Void, and then the rest of the movie for his arc, it's all in Wyatt Russell's performance and in like small mannerisms and small
And a lot of
snippets
offhanded
of
comments.
dialogue and a
Yeah,
lot of
very
offhanded
offhanded
comments.
comments. Yeah.
And you see it within the background. It's not even like the camera, focuses on John Walker, and you see this, you see it in like the background.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we said in the beginning of this is clearly Yelena's story, or at least we're
Oh yeah.
following Yelena's story from the beginning to end,
She
and
is
that's not a
very clearly the
problem.
main through line and main character of this movie. Even though it is an ensemble cast, really it's Yelena's movie. It
And
it
that's not a
really is. And it's setting her up to be the leader of the Avengers alongside Bucky.
yeah. And it's not like it's not a problem. Uh but one of my other complaints, and or sorry, let me say US Agent's arc first, is learning to be a team player, because he's not. And
Yeah.
by the end of this, you see him becoming a team player. Uh
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
that honestly leads to one of
why
my
did you go off without me? Like you were supposed to wait for me. That's the whole like conflict of when they're trying to escape the vault. And
yeah,
Yelena's like, "Oh, you're supposed to wait on me." And he's like, "Well, I'm not a team." Like he doesn't care. He wants to do what he thinks is right. He tries to impose his plans and his thoughts onto the team.
correct. One of my biggest complaints with this film is I wish it was at least 15 to 30 minutes longer, because I wish we could have developed everybody else just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I like the subtlety of it, but unless you watch it multiple times, you're gonna miss a lot of the subtleties in parts of arcs. Because at the ending of the first viewing, I also thought US Agent didn't really have an arc. Like we saw him change, but it was more on a dime, just out of nowhere. Like, okay, he's a asshole who's a non-team player, and then all of a sudden in the next scene, oh, he's a massive team player. Done and done. There wasn't really like a clear connection. And the same thing went with Bucky. I actually thought, oh, okay, you could really replace Bucky with anybody and it would get the same job done. Second viewing, that whole changed because I got to notice the subtleties, and I got to notice like in the performances and certain things that were said that can be very easily missed. If they just gave it 30 to 15 more minutes longer and like gave more time to it, it wouldn't have gotten lost on first viewing. And I feel like that's where a lot of people, if they have any negative thoughts about it, like the person I saw the movie with, it's going to be that first viewing, because they just didn't take that extra 30 minutes or 15 minutes to flesh out more things,
Well, because
and to
this
flesh it out
movie
more.
is almost exactly 2 hours. I think it's like 2 hours and 4 minutes. So it's
Yeah,
not on. It's very much in that like middle line of like movie lengths for the MCU. It's not the shortest, but it's very much not on the longer end of things. I
right.
do agree that I think the movie definitely could have benefited from an additional 15 minutes in certain areas. I know one major complaint that was brought up, I think it was when I was watching Koi's spoiler review, is because one thing we have not talked about at all that we very much need to talk about is the other main we've talked this entire review and still not even mentioned the name of like you would talk about Yelena being the main character, arguably the other equal main character of this movie being Bob. We haven't even said
Yeah.
Bob's name this
I
entire
was gonna
review.
I was gonna save him for this later half. If you want to start now, go right ahead.
Well, no. I'm not saying that like we need to talk about him now, but I'm just saying like I there's a lot that this movie has to cover, a lot, because there's a lot of different characters. And in the Avengers, all of them got their own movie before leading into the Avengers, with the exception of technically 3 of them, I guess, because you had the Captain America movie, you had the Iron Man movie, you had the Thor movie, but you didn't have a Black Widow movie, you did not have a Hawkeye movie, and you did not have an Incredible Hulk movie, even though you did, but you didn't. It's whatever. So you already have a really big establishment for all of those characters. With this movie, you really only like Ghost is a villain in the movie that she's introduced with. Yelena, you get in Black Widow, and she is a supporting character, like a major supporting character, but she's still not the main character. You as Agent, you get in a TV show that I feel like a lot of people probably didn't even watch. And again, he plays more of a like supporting role, more of a leading, like not villain, but like an antagonist to a certain extent in that movie. So you don't have as much to go off of. So this movie has a lot more that it needs to accomplish as compared to the first Avengers movie of developing these characters. And that's where I do agree that it could have used that additional like 15, 20 minutes to be like, oh, well, this is what this is why John Walker is the way he is. I think it goes back to, personally, the only character I really definitely wanted more out of was Ghost. We didn't even see into Ghost's head. We don't know what scenario Ghost went through. We don't know any of that. Now, granted, we can make assumptions based off of what she's been through in the past and what we know about her from the Ant-Man movies, but I think that they could have used that to give them each 5 additional minutes, honestly. Just give each character an additional 5 minutes to flesh out their story to make us care even more.
No, but yeah, that's the whole reason why I said what I said for that reason, was because that's another just complaint, is just give it more time. You can have as much time as you want. You are a billion-dollar company. Give it just a little bit more time. Like, it's not going to kill you. But again, it's also one of those like minor complaints at the end, because the film itself is still really good.
Yeah.
Again, the writing for each character and the dialogue in between all of these characters is so well done that it kind of, even the minor complaints, like, they're there, but they kind of just sink back into, just a crevice that we just don't talk about that, because this is really good. So who cares about that? But yeah, let's talk about where the heart really comes from this movie, and that is Sentry. Or
Lewis
Sentry
Pullman,
or Void.
Lewis Pullman, fucking, oh my god, for me, he is the standout of this movie. His acting in this movie, the subtlety in his performance, the emotion behind his performance, Lewis Pullman kills it. It's, for me, in this movie, he is the standout. Yeah, yes, I love Yelena. Yes, I love the comedy that some of the other characters bring, but Lewis Pullman brings the comedy, the emotion, the subtlety. He brings all of it into his performance.
I really love Lewis Pullman as an actor. I loved him in Bad Times at the El Royale. I know you've never seen that. That was a film that came out in 2018.
Yeah. The only thing I know him from that I remember is Maverick. Top Gun Maverick is Lewis Pullman. That's one of
I loved him in Bad Times at the El Royale. I loved him in Maverick. I think he is genuinely he's a very natural actor. Like, he's very good at taking roles and just making them natural, even if they're like actually over the top absurd. And here, the best parts of, like, he's really good at playing like not traumatized. What's the word I'm looking for? He's very good at playing the types of characters that have
complex.
No, honestly, traumatized.
Because that's
complex.
Because that's my thought behind this performance. Is Lewis Pullman plays the most complex character in this entire like movie.
He's very good at playing complex characters, and so when they actually cast him in this role, I wasn't surprised. I know, I actually remember initially it was Stephen Yeun who was supposed to play this role.
Yeah, they had a completely different actor originally for Sentry, and then I don't know the reason why the recast, but I do know that they recast Sentry to Lewis Pullman, who I think, honestly, after seeing this, was the better choice. I think Lewis Pullman he is a perfect Sentry.
He's very, very good, and then he's equally good as Void. I think that the story they give Bob, because again, Bob starts out as a joke technically in the beginning. He's this guy who
Yeah.
just winds up here. They don't do any like much with him until like, you know, he has a heart to heart with Yelena, and they start talking about, you know, past trauma, or, you know, have you ever like like this is how I feel, and I feel like this, you know, there's just this void inside of me. When he dropped that, me and my friend just looked at each other and went, "Oh my god,
Oh
no,
no,
they're
I was
already
hyped.
doing this now."
I was hyped. He was like, "Oh, there's a void," and I was like, "Oh, let's go."
Yeah, and so
Obviously, knowing the character of Sentry, knowing the character of Void, and where that leads, like, I feel like
yeah,
the reason they left that line in there is because I feel there Sentry is a very unknown character. Like, he's a very modern Marvel character. He only came in very recently in the past like 15 years, I think. He doesn't have a very big history in the MCU. So I feel like the reason they made that comment is because most people aren't going to know about Sentry and Void. So they left that seed in there of calling it Void, so that later on the people who don't know that Void is going to come in later can be like, "Oh my god, they mentioned that earlier." But for you and I, who obviously know the character of Void that plays along with Sentry, it is like oh, of course they're just gonna drop that line like that.
sure, yeah. And I think that his storyline being so similar to Yelena's also adds just like an extra thing, especially when it comes to the end with Yelena, you know, saying to Bob like, "Hey, I'm here for you," and then everybody else coming in like, we're all here for you. We're together. We're not alone. Like, we're all together." Um, it just adds such an emotional weight. And then you also like they suddenly hint at like Bob's past, and then you kind of see it a little bit more and more as the film continues to go on and on, especially once Yelena enters Void. And you see some of her trauma, and then you see some of Bob's trauma as he sits in this quiet room as he relives the most traumatic moment with his father abusing him. Um,
Yeah.
and it, you know, then like they also, what's played off as a joke is, I worked as this did he say
Meth-addicted
he
sign meth-addicted sign twirling chicken.
like
Is
and
that
it,
is that the one you're talking about? Yeah.
yeah, and was he the chicken? Was it saying that he worked as the chicken?
Yes. Yes,
Okay, that's what it was.
he was the meth-addicted sign flipping chicken, correct.
That's what I thought, and that's why we jump to that, and then that adds a whole nother layer. Uh, and then you jump to the final bit with Void sitting there in the lab where he was created. Uh, and look, Bob's story arc is just incredible in this film because
Yeah, and you
it
wanna
deals with a darker and heavier theme that Marvel has never, well, not that it hasn't dealt with before, but it does it in such a very mature and respectful understanding.
Yeah,
And
well,
it
you wanna
again,
talk about things that I did not see until the rewatch. So at the end of the movie, you flash to, the lab that Sentry was being held in,
yeah,
and you see that he very clearly, turned the 2 doctors into shadows. I did not realize until I rewatched that movie that you can, in fact, see those shadows in the lab that Yelena breaks into. I don't know if you noticed that the first time around, or if you didn't notice that till the rewatch, or if you didn't notice it at all. I did not notice that until the rewatch. And when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, yeah, there are the shadows that you see in that, like, later on in the movie
yep,
with Bob
yep.
in the lab.
I was gonna bring that up. I'm glad you did, because and that's what I mean. Like, this film is much better on rewatch because you noticed more and more things that you
Yeah, you
just
know what
you
you're looking for.
the filmmakers, when they made this, like, yeah, sure, it's Marvel, whatever. They want to make a ton of money at the end of the day, but they actually, like, the filmmakers sat down, they created a story from start to finish, and they actually thought through. They had a roadmap, and that's what makes this movie so good, and that's what makes it work. Is that it is a very clear, focused, honed in story. Um, Even though it's generic, again, elevated by writing, elevated by some pretty good shots for the most part, with the exception of a bit of rough CGI
Well,
every
like the
now and
scene
again.
of Yelena flipping through the lab at the end of the movie, there was a little bit of like humans don't move like that. It was a cool shot, but like that's one of those scenes that for me, even on first watch, I was like, okay, this is cool, but like a little bit weird. One thing I want to say is I thought about this after I walked out of the movie the first time. And obviously I know it's played for jokes, but in Deadpool and Wolverine, there's that scene of Deadpool sitting on the couch with Blind Al and having that whole commentary of like, oh, Marvel won't let us say cocaine, like we can't do the, and then they go through the whole like interlude of all the like nicknames and stuff. And obviously I know it's played for laughs, but I want to give Marvel kudos here where they call it as it is. They say that Bob is a meth addict. Multiple,
Yeah.
like they deal with addiction and not just like
Yeah.
a non-existent addiction. They call it, he says, I am a meth addict. And
Yeah.
I want to give Marvel credit for having the balls to put that in this movie because we really have not seen something like that before, to like that isn't played for laughs as like Deadpool's drug addiction is.
I'm not giving Marvel credit for it. I'm giving Disney credit for it because I don't. It's not Marvel. Marvel has the balls to
True.
do what they need
True.
to. It's Disney, and I'm giving Disney credit for letting Marvel take more of a control. Because honestly, at the end of the day, and this is a topic for another time, but is it really Disney or Marvel that's running the show at this point? And how much grip
Yeah.
does Marvel actually have on their own projects?
Yeah, maybe that's a conversation we can have when there's a like we've talked about this a lot offline. We have the topics planned out for the next like goddamn like 3 months because it's just nonstop content releases. But maybe after we get out
Right.
of this, we can, and by then we'll have also have finished the next movies in, because we still have Fantastic Four and things like that left to come. But yeah, and also not just with the meth addiction, they talk like this movie, and you mentioned respectfully. I agree with you, they handle, because obviously a big thing for this is mental health. And
Yeah.
I'll just like I have clinical depression. I've dealt with depression my entire life, pretty bad. So a lot of the emotional beats and through lines of suicide and of feeling a void and feeling alone, like I have felt all of those before, and I feel like Marvel did really handle it. Oh,
That would be my fire alarm. It's probably somebody's cooking something downstairs and just absolutely set it off. We love that.
okay. That was hilarious timing as well. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've had depression," and the fire alarm's like, "Shut up, Brandon. We don't wanna hear about that." Um,
Oh, I love filming live and then having moments
oh,
like that
yeah.
where you're just like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
oh, hello.
But anyways, back to it. I do feel like mental health and depression is a very big through line in this movie, and I really do think they handle it really respectfully. I mean, you also deal with a big thing of Sentry's character is that schizophrenia, and they make the comment like, "Oh, you're talking to yourself. Like, why are you over there talking with yourself?" And I feel like that. One, it serves to show that John Walker's just an asshole because he's yelling at Bob for talking to himself, but it also shows like, no, this is a real issue, and he talks about that of his blackouts and his forgetfulness and his memory loss, and that comes with multiple personality disorder, which is where Void comes from. Is Void is that other personality manifested through the darkness that is inside of Sentry. That's a thing in the comic books. And I feel like Marvel really did a good job of handling all of these very heavy topics of mental health and depression and loneliness and belonging. I think that the whole speech that Red Guardian and Yelena have at the end of the movie of, do you remember why you wanted to become a goalie? And because this all starts with Yelena going, I've done so, like, Red Guardian's like, oh, we've all done terrible things, and Yelena like breaks down, and like, I started tearing up because like, God, Florence Pugh is a great actress. She is a phenomenal actress because in this scene specifically, like you could hear her voice break of like, I've done so many bad things. And that's when Red Guardian's like, I still see that little girl in you that wanted to just help people. She wanted to be someone that others could depend
Right.
on. And it's those moments that really remind you of like, oh, like, you might have your dark times, you might have done bad things, but you can still be that person, that goodness that is within all of us.
Right. Right. Uh we're getting close to running on time, so I'm gonna go ahead and let's move to talking about the post-credit scene because that's really important that we get that in here. Obviously, it leads.
I'm gonna say it. I was fucking right. I fucking called. I knew. I did not know that this was going to be the post credit scene, but I called it. I think, if not last podcast, I know I called it on one of these podcast episodes that Fantastic Four was not going to win their battle with Galactus, and they were going to come to this Earth because their Earth was destroyed. Granted, we don't know that's the reason they're coming, but by golly, I am almost certain that is why they're coming to this Earth. And I
More
think
likely than
that
not.
this scene recontextualizes everything we know about the Fantastic Four movie. This makes me believe that everything we've seen in the trailer so far, the Fantastic Four movie, it might even just be the first act. I'm going to be totally honest with you. All we've seen in the trailer very easily could just be the first act, because I think that the end of this post-credit scene recontextualizes everything we know about where they're going with that movie. And it's really funny because you said you saw this in IMAX. One of the things that this movie has when you watch it in IMAX specifically is they have the countdown from 10 in the Fantastic Four style. They play the Fantastic Four music and they have that countdown. Both times I watched that movie, people around me, and the first time, including myself, I'm sitting there going, wait a second, are they just going to show us the Fantastic? Like, why are we counting down with the Fantastic? Like, this makes no sense. Like, why are we counting down with the Fantastic Four style? And then it's like shows the whole IMAX thing, and you're like, oh, it was just an advertisement to go see, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's the end credit scene recontextualizes that countdown to show that no, these movies are intrinsically tied at their core. And it recontextualizes all of that. It recontextualizes what the Fantastic Four movie is going to be. It's why we saw that countdown being Fantastic Four. It's also why both times I saw this movie, and I know they did this deliberately, the last trailer you see before this movie starts is the Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah. Look, all that post credit scene did was lead into two things. One, it's going to be the whole movie's Galactus stopping Galactus, and they're gonna lose their. I think this is pretty much a for sure like sealed fate thing. They're gonna do something in either defeating Galactus or not defeating Galactus that causes an incursion, which causes them to leave their world. I think that's a sealed thing, whether it's the entire movie or whether it's the first act. I think there's a very likely chance that if it is the first act, the Fantastic Four first steps, what that means is it's a fish out of water story of they travel the multiverse after losing their world. And the first steps is taking the first steps into this new reality.
That, honestly, I didn't put that together. That's a really interesting thought, honestly, in the sense of, again, if all we've seen in the trailer truly is the first act of this movie, and it is their first steps trying to put themselves back together after a crippling defeat by Galactus's hand. Because I've held from not the beginning, but from pretty early on, that I'm pretty convinced that their world is going to get destroyed, that they are going to lose. And recontextualizing, and they try to give a little bit of a subversion of expectation with the whole finding out that Sue is pregnant, and maybe the first steps is the baby's first steps. But you also, in that same trailer, see Galactus taking his first steps on Earth. Like, there's a lot of things that first steps could mean for this movie, and they're trying to set up multiple of them. But after this post-credit scene, I think that's a really good thought, Carson. Like, I think that their first steps into a different reality and into finding themselves again and putting themselves back together.
Yeah. Again, it's all a theory, so I couldn't possibly begin to say, but that's just what that one post-credit scene kind of left me with. I was like, it could mean that now that we have a confirmation that in some way, some form, they are making contact with the 616 universe because of losing their world to in some way, somehow. And even knowing that that's what's going to happen doesn't diminish my excitement for it. It actually enhances it because now I want to see why they lose. Like, what exactly is the reason behind it? And so, I don't know. Thunderbolts overall 7.5 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed my time with it.
I was going to give it an 8.5 to a 9, honestly. I think that I really enjoyed this movie, especially after rewatch. And again, some of that could be recency bias, but at the same time, like I'd say it's at least an 8.5 for me. Like this is on the higher end of Marvel movies, but definitely not top. I don't think this is top 10. I think it's top 20 for sure. Definitely top 15.
It's on the upper end for sure, but I thought it was very good. I'm excited to watch it again with my brother later this week. I think it's going to be fun to watch it a third time. Let's move on to the final topic. What are we excited for? I'm going to let you go ahead and start. Go ahead.
I mean, we already talked about it briefly. But I'm really excited for Now You See Me 3 with that trailer. One thing, so I was scrolling through Instagram at the gym one day. This was actually the same day that I saw that the Now You See Me trailer had been posted. Rosario Dawson posted in her Ahsoka, she posted a silhouette of her in the Ahsoka costume on her Instagram page a few days ago. Which means that they're filming. Like, I'm really like that just got me really excited because I love her as Ahsoka. I don't think she's as good as Ashley Eckstein, but Ashley's also just a voice for an on-screen Ahsoka. I think she does a good job, so I'm really excited to see her back in the costume and back playing that character. This one's a little bit of a cheat because I can't personally say I'm excited for it, but it is something that I wanted to mention because it's something I saw on Instagram as well, and I did confirm. Shogun got confirmed for a season 2. I don't know if you saw that. I have not seen Shogun season 1. It is one of my biggest like misses. I know I need to go back and watch it. I don't know if I'll do it this week, but I definitely will. It might be something that I rewatch right before Shogun season 2 releases, so that kind of like how we've done before of like watch season 1 before season 2. But this season of Shogun is going to tell a completely original story that takes place 10 years after the story of Shogun. So it's not like it's going to have probably like subtle ties, but it is going to tell its own story in the world of Shogun.
Sure.
And I know that's something that a lot of people are very hype on. So yeah, I honestly, like, other than the things that we mention every single week, those are really the two things I wanted to call out, like specifically that are like in the immediate future that like, or maybe not in the immediate future, but like released recently.
Look, man, I when I was in the theater, I saw the Mission Impossible trailer. I get so freaking hyped for that movie. Oh my god, it's bringing together so much. It's ending everything. Well, as far as we know, it's ending everything. But Mission Impossible, I'm really excited for that.
Watching that trailer in IMAX was awesome. Like that movie looks stunning in IMAX. Just the trailer watching it in IMAX because the trailer itself was in IMAX. So yeah, no, that was
I'm excited for Mission Impossible. I've waited a long time for this, especially since the last one, and then it got delayed. I was like, oh come on, hurry up, bring it out. I want it out. Give me it now. So I'm excited for the story to wrap up. I'm excited to see where it ends. Strangely enough, I am actually kind of mildly excited for Lilo and Stitch, even though I'm like super against Disney's live action remakes. I think it's just because I really like Lilo and Stitch as a film, and of all the Disney live action remakes, I think that one actually kind of works the best.
I think it has a good chance.
It has a really good chance. It does. So I'm excited for that. I was going to mention Shogun, so I'm glad that you brought that up. I was so excited when they announced that. I'm hyped for that. I loved the first season. I thought it was one of the best things to come out of last year or 2 years ago.
I think it was last year.
I think it was
the first season.
I think it was last year.
I think it was.
I can't even remember.
Or
but
no,
I thought
it
it was
wasn't
really
because it wasn't last year. It was 2 years ago because Penguin was last year, and I know that Penguin was not released the same year as. I'm almost now. I want to look it up. Are you looking it up?
I was looking it up. Yeah, just because I am trying to remember. Shogun.
It was 2024, so it was last.
Okay,
year.
so it was last
February through April of. It was early last year. It was February 27th through April 23rd of last year.
Right. But I'm excited for Shogun. I loved the first season. I thought it was great. I'm excited to see what they do here. And then obviously now with Thunderbolts being released, Fantastic Four. I mean, they just
God, dude, I'm so excited. So excited.
they keep getting me more hyped for it. I'm sure there's things that I'm missing, but any final regards, any final thoughts?
There was something that I was thinking about that I totally forgot. So very clearly, it was not important. Again, so two things. One, the only other anime I did not talk about on this show that I'm watching is One Piece. I'm gonna be, like I said last week, I'm gonna be posting my weekly One Piece reviews on Thursdays on our short form content. Watch those. I'm very excited for One Piece. So I guess that's what are you excited for? What I also wanted to mention next week's episode, and what that's going to be. So next week's episode is going to be Tales from the Underworld. So tomorrow, actually, when this episode releases on May the 4th, Tales from the Underworld, I think it's 8 episodes of an animated series following Asajj Ventress.
6.
And 6, okay. Is going to release. So that is going to be the main topic of conversation for the next episode. The week after that is going to be our Mission Impossible rewatch. So we're going to rewatch, or I don't know if Carson's going to rewatch all of them. I am going to rewatch all of them at the very least, of all the Mission Impossible movies, in preparation for the main topic of conversation for the end of the month being our Mission Impossible Last Reckoning review, as well as our Lilo and Stitch review, but I don't need to rewatch the animated movie for that. So
yeah, no, I get you.
I just wanted to throw that out there, get people hyped, get people excited for what's coming up.
Cool. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening in. If you're on one of the many podcast websites, you can find us on all the streaming platforms possible. I promise you. And you can find us on all social media platforms at Nerdy Nimrods. Next week, we're talking about Tales of the Underworld. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. This has been Carson, aka Juggernaut, with
Brandon, aka Parrotfish.
And this is us sitting here saying, stay nerdy.